I forgot to change my lights. Awesome. Hey, welcome back to the Dynasty Grind. My name is Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter. We go live every Wednesday at 9:30 till we get tired, bored, or have to be somewhere else to talk about Dynasty, fantasy football, or anything else you guys might want to ask us questions about in the little comment boxes below us or to the side of us on whatever streaming platform you happen to be, watching us on, whoever happens to do that. Bit of an early night. Zach's got to get ready to go to the FF Expo, and I am knee deep in writing my podcast that was due today. But I was hoping to be knee deep because I'm just getting out of the bath. That is the preparation for my podcast. Instead, I'm more knee deep in terms of it turns out the bath's a lot deeper than I thought. And I'm nowhere near finished. So I want to get back to work on that since, I meant to have it published already. But in the meantime, I know what you got. What questions you got? Let's talk about some fantasy football. Hey Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you? You look good, Pete.
I don't. Oh, do I look that bad? Yeah, I'm a little all over the place today. So, in general, I'm normally all over the place. But today in particular, I feel pretty productive, but at the same time, I haven't done nearly enough, if you know what I mean.
You sound like Ryan McDowell. It's the productive struggle. That's what you're doing.
That's probably what it is. And we do actually have some questions already, which I appreciate. Mike Oxlong, 12-team 1QB start 8. Would you add to the 102 to move up to the 101, or what would you add? It's a jump. It's a jump from depending. Let me start again. 1QB league. That's a jump from JSN to Bijan Robinson. So, what do you think the difference is measurably? I mean, I'm only doing it if I really think I'm in a competitive window for a start.
Yeah.
It's probably a 24 first. Would that be?
I think that's pretty spot on. And
I'd only do it. Anything less than that is a win. And I'd only do it if I really felt like I was in a competitive window. Like this year, I really plan to be in the final. Because that's the way Dynasty works. But yeah.
But Bijan though is pretty insulated. Like I agree with you, but Bijan's pretty insulated, barring. Well, I mean, honestly, even if he does have a bad injury, like Breece Hall is still in the top. I'd have to look. I would have to pull up DLF and say
maybe I'm playing too psychological here because it's not exactly my game. So it's kind of your game. Tell me if I'm wrong. It feels like I don't see as much hype about Bijan Robinson as I expected. Now, I am still absolutely confident in what I think and where I have him and who he's going to be and the fact that his value can only go up from here, and it will. But I worry if it's a slow start or if it's not an absolutely, Barkley-esque rookie season, which can happen. He can still be great and not great. It feels like some are waiting to say, I told you so. Because they don't like how obvious it is. And they like to think that is analysis. Just being contrary for the sake of it.
Maybe, but
I mean, unless he's immediately CMC, they're going to be like, see, you could have got your whole team for the price. But
you couldn't. So this has been a weird, the Bijan phenomenon has been really weird because we've been talking about Bijan Robinson for 3 years. He has been great. He's delivered every promise that we could possibly have asked. And then it was impossible to trade the 101, or nearly impossible to trade the 101, because people were trying to make this class worse or say it had been overvalued. And so and even though he's the running back has become devalued. So it's this really weird,
that's what I mean, though. I'm just kind of skittish from the
aligning of the planet. Yeah, but I do not believe. I think Bijan starts to remind us why we like running backs.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good point. Adding a first seems pretty solid.
No offense to Tyler Algier, but Tyler Algier cannot carry Bijan's jock, and Tyler Algier just had a tremendous year last year.
I heard about that. Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. Yeah, yeah. I agree. I just wanted to ask. Puff Pass Kick. Welcome back, man. Been a minute. The episode The Dynasty Grind that airs on September the 6th should be titled Season. All right.
I like it.
I'm running out of seasons to name. I don't know why I started that convention, and I definitely don't know how I'm going to continue it because I'm running out of, made up seasons. Non-point season, point season. Training camp season was last week, so I guess it has to be pre-season now.
Preseason season.
I'm saving that for the preseason.
I mean, we're in it, Peter. Like we had a preseason game on Thursday. We have preseason games this Thursday. It's happening. We're here.
True. Doug Riley, 12-team Dynasty Superflex, full PPR, Purdy or Love. Who would you rather have, Purdy? It's not. Yeah, it's fine. I'd rather have Purdy. I think there's more upside there.
Yeah. I know there are a lot of people who like Jordan Love, and more power to you. But just because Aaron Rodgers was drafted late by the Packers doesn't mean that Jordan Love is Aaron Rodgers.
No, it's unrelated variables. I still think you can do enough maybe to pay off Christian Watson's ADP. It's fine. I'm about an average on him, but I don't think he's going to be particularly impressive. And I think anyone that spent I was thinking about this a lot lately because I listened to Rich Harbaugh and JJ Zachariason talk about Green Bay and how it was pretty bad last year with Aaron Rodgers and how Love can pay off that debt for this season, and Watson's ADP is so fine that the upside is worth it. I think he's Chase Claypool. I don't think the upside's really there, but I recognize the bet, and that's why my rank is fairly similar to where ADP is at on him without checking ADP beforehand, just where I came out on him and where I feel about him. But and there was a but here, and I forget what it was. I just think he's Chase Claypool. I don't think it pays off. If you know what I mean. I think anyone who spent the value to get Christian Watson, if you've already got him, obviously keep rostering him. But if you traded the value for Christian Watson, I think that value could have been better spent on adding something to get to Olave, or just straight across to Drake London, or straight across to Treylon Burks. And that's my gripe with him at this point. Sorry, I was thinking about that situation all week since I listened to that episode. I'm like, but in Dynasty, looking at this year, I think the value it takes to get Christian Watson, you can do so much better with your team this year.
Yeah, he's going wide receiver 18. He's going ahead of Jordan Addison. He's going ahead of Jerry Jeudy. He's going ahead of DJ Moore. He's going ahead of Chris Godwin. He's going ahead of Debo. Not to mention Burks, Amari Cooper.
Well, that's
George Kittle,
Debo, I think, right there. But
but it's. I mean, it doesn't matter what it's a function of. It's a thing.
Well, it depends how it operates in your league. Is what I mean is when you transact into league play. If I ask the Addison owner for Addison for Christian Watson, he's going to say no, same position trade, and I like Addison a lot because he's a rookie and I just drafted him. So turning it into a league play. Yeah. Anyway, it's conflicting because I liked a lot of what they had to say, and that one I was like,
I knew you were kind of dancing. I heard a lot of your guys come out of Rich Freebar and JJ. And I thought of you. I thought of you when I was like, oh, Peter's just dancing right now.
Thought about, actually, one of the things I thought about is that's what I said 2 months ago. And it's not because I'm a genius. It's because I'm not trying to evaluate players or think I know what teams or players are going to do. I kind of liked a lot of them just based on the trends. And I was like, that's kind of, if it gives an edge, it's that. You can pretty much know it the minute the season's finished. You don't have to wait until someone does all the hard work that Rich and JJ does. And it gets you pretty close to the same place. They didn't like Bateman. They didn't say Bateman or Ron no more. I was sad. Genji. No, I think I skipped one. Sorry. Drew Sorensen music. Nice. Drew Sorensen music. Probably too soon, but the 24 draft class, what can we expect? I'm likely a top 4 team with 224 picks. Other managers' picks. Consider them as trade or capital, or should I hold them? I can tell you a little bit, but I'm not a Devi guy. So Zach seems to have more in the tank. So I'll let him go first.
Well, again, I'm not a Devi guy either, but I've already heard of 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, maybe 3, and at least a running back. So that is 5 or 6, which is not a bit like that. Five solid players is not a bad class. I think this class to me had, what do we decide? 7 to 10 that we
like the tier 2 a lot is a different thing. But yeah. What I was going to say is a few things I've garnered from the Devi analysis that I deign to listen to, which is not many because they annoy me a lot. Not really. 24 is going to be an interesting year because there's going to be a lot of older players coming out there, and it's going to separate those who know what has value, has value, and those who are just used to posting the similar age arguments and garnering clicks from them. Because being old isn't the problem, it's how good you are, how old you played. A lot of players use the COVID eligibility to stay in an extra year. It's meant to be, of the next 2 classes, more quarterback focused than running back or wide receiver. In terms of historical hit rates, I expect some disappointing classes pretty soon, and I don't think it's 23. So I'm a little skittish on 24, 25. So that puts them more in the capital to trade away cat. But again, the Devi people that I have heard say they're more worried about 25 than 24. And especially if you're in a super flex league, I'm not too worried. I think there's going to be some really interesting quarterback options over the next couple of years. But again, it's always about the trade, Drew. If you can find something that helps you win this year, it doesn't matter what they get in the rookie draft. If you win, that was the thing. So, hold them. It's always an option to trade. And if you get a good trade offer, that's good as well. But also remember the seasonal areas where things have more or less value. 24 picks are going to go into a bit of a lull during the season where people give them away because they think they're going to win, like I just said, is always an option. And so they're going to be trading a little bit more freely, but a little bit lower value. And as closer we get to rookie hype season for the Dynasty community rather than the Devi community, the more we're going to get a good idea of, 1, where that value is, and 2, it's going to go up in most leagues, I think.
Can I theory this for just a second too, though?
Oh, please.
So I was on last night with Dynasty Outhouse on the Trade Addicts pod, and with Too Much _ Brian, who has his own podcast and was fantastic. But we kind of fielded a question that was similar to this, except it was in reverse, where somebody asked us if we would trade away depth to acquire picks, even if we were contenders. Yes. And I said, absolutely, I would, be depending on your league. Because if you're in a league that's active, I would much rather have the picks, because the fungibility of the picks all of a sudden, nearly every team in your league will be interested in those picks. And so you can acquire depth if you continue to be a contender, or if there's a situation that arises that, necessitates you adding pieces. Whereas if you've traded those picks and got something, unless that is a hammer, unless you're going out and getting McCaffrey or, somebody who's going to score just an uber amount of points and be in your starting lineup, then I would rather have the picks, because I think you can do more with them further into the future.
Yeah. And also, it's just they're more interesting to more teams more generally. And so the picks always have a little bit more translatability from one trade offer to the other. And also, again, like this time of the year, people are more into their depth. They're thinking about their starters and who they're going to play as a wide receiver 3 and the running back 2. So you're getting slightly better trades. I'd imagine most leagues on average trying to trade them for picks now than you would have a month ago or 2 months ago. So we're kind of in the opposite window. Yeah, good point. Genji, welcome back. What do you guys think? A lot of things, to be honest with you, but 12-team lineup
like
starts
6 things.
I've gone max 5 on me, put it that way. Start 10, PPR, Stroud, Lance, Bigsby, Condre, Bijan Robinson, JSN, Marvin Mims, Quentin Johnson, Burks, Dolcic, I can't say it. And then some depth. Donald Mooney is a little bit more than depth, but that's nice. He's got 5:24 first, 3:24 seconds, 4:25 first, 3:25 seconds. Nice. I wouldn't consider myself a contender still. You've got a very nice shiny roster, and you're looking to convert that into more proven players. Hopefully some of your draft picks work out here. Burks, I think, could. Quentin Johnson, I think, could. But we're also looking to move from the maybe boats into boats where you have enough value. You don't fearing having maybe boats. That's literally the whole goal. But don't be afraid to convert it here or there as the season progresses. I mean, it's a good team. You're going to have games, but I wouldn't think of myself as a top 5 team. And I'd think of myself looking to convert some of my value into my supposed value, my ethereal value of this player is going to be great into, Jalen Waddle and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And can I get a Travis Kelce or someone else? Not necessarily thinking competitive or not. I just want less maybes. Again, you can't do that right now because we don't know who is or isn't more or less of a maybe. But that's where my head would be at on the team. But I think you've done a very good job acquiring lots of shiny things to do that with.
So, and Genji also says that he's tanking for Caleb Williams. So he's got a very specific plan in place where those having those picks and having a roster that isn't necessarily scoring him the most points this year is actually beneficial because he's trying to get that next, top tier quarterback. And by all accounts right now, Caleb Williams is looking like the tier of prospect of, the Trevor Lawrence, which again, Trevor Lawrence hasn't panned out quite like everyone had hoped, but that doesn't take away from his like acumen as a prospect, and it also doesn't take away from the fact that he is building toward what we kind of expect to be a very nice season career. So, like, I get it, Genji. I get the tank for Caleb Williams. Not everybody has the stomach to do that.
What I'd also do is look at my teams, the teams in my league, and just keep an eye out for a certain thing. One, you want to know where those proven players are on teams you suspect aren't as competitive, because they'll be the ones selling, especially if they're not young and sexy. In season, they'll be more likely to move Amon-Ra St. Brown or a Stephon Diggs or Derrick Henry or any of these old players that are good or established players that are good. T. Higgins could drop for a team that's got him but suddenly isn't competitive. So I want to know where those players are. Also, I would look at the Jordan Addison team because ideally, week 4, he hasn't done very much, and the team that's got him is more interested in competing, and you will have a kick-ass Bijan Robinson, and you could hose him, especially where you're intentionally trying to tank to improve your picks. Because even by week 4, Bijan Robinson may have reminded the world what running back is about. And you could, you need the world by then, but you getting Addison and the world might be a move. It doesn't have to be a Bijan Robinson trade, but I want to know where those type of things are in my league to watch how they go and consider what they might be interested in as the season goes on. P to the R. I just finished a 1 QB rookie draft. Congrats. How do you like it? 101 was Bijan Robinson. Addison 106. A-Chain at 108. 111 was Kincaid. Condre was 112. Roshan at 108. That's a great pick too. And Rodriguez at the 501 is fine. I think I probably would have stuffed even like a Stetson Bennett or a Brenton Strange if he was available in the 5th. Other than that, down there, perfect. You got the 101 and you got Addison. So, I mean, outside of JSN, that's a wish list. I think A-Chain at the 108's a little high, but pretty sharp pick. I like it. Unless you could have got Quentin Johnson there, then I think you did pretty well. I'm surprised you're not highlighting the Kincaid pick and ranting about first-round tight ends.
I don't like I don't like first-round tight ends, but I saw Bijan, I saw Addison, I saw Roshan.
And you were good.
Like whatever. You can have your Kincaid. I don't care.
Mike Hoyt, 10-team Dynasty Superflex PPR, giving Jefferson a young receiver, Josh Allen and AJ Brown, giving Jefferson Young receiving. Oh, okay. I read young receiver. Okay. Giving Jefferson, getting Yeah, well, I'm struggling today, people.
Giving Jefferson.
Jefferson and Young. Receiving Josh Allen and AJ Brown.
That's the Allen AJ Brown side. As much as it pains me to give up Jefferson, it's Josh Allen.
I don't think the difference between AJ Brown and Jefferson is enough to account for the difference between Young and Allen. That's what it comes down to. Like, yeah. And an example of a good Jefferson trade is fairly hard to find, Mike. So good job there, man. Yeah, I think you said Superflex, or we answered from the perspective of Superflex. Yeah, it makes sense. That's why you were going for Caleb Williams too.
Yeah.
Logan B. In a 12-team start 10 Superflex half-point PPR, would you trade T. Higgins and DJ Moore? T. Higgins for DJ Moore and Rashad White. I don't know. It's fairly even. I think I'd rather have the T. Higgins side, but I think Rashad White's going to have a pretty decent year, and DJ Moore is going to be fine. He's going to be DJ Moore. But I'd probably rather have T. Higgins.
Logan, I disagree with your premise that DJ Moore and T. Higgins will score equivalent the next 3 years. Like, and that may just be an evaluation thing, but like I'm still on T. Higgins. I think that the idea of being a wide receiver 2 has really stuck in people's head. That if you're a wide receiver 2, you're not as valuable as another team's wide receiver 1, and that's not the case. There are, I can't remember, Peter, if it was 10 or 12 teams a year that do not have a top 24 wide receiver on their team, because there are 4 teams on average a year that have 2 top 24 wide receivers, and one of those teams, pretty consistently since Higgins and Chase have been there, are the Bengals, because Higgins is really good and DJ Moore is like clawing to be a top 24. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's just
in terms of who's top 24 and who's not. I guess you could say DJ Moore and T. Higgins have similar ranges of outcomes, but I think I'd give Higgins the higher proportion of top end outcomes on a year-to-year basis. It doesn't matter too much because I think Higgins is always going to carry a little bit more value than DJ Moore, and it's Dynasty, so that matters. On a competitive roster where Rashad White's going to function as your running back 2 this year, I think it could give you an edge, but I don't think there's any need to do that right now. It's the type of move you could do mid-season or even find another running back just in case. Because if you're trading for a running back, which this trade would be for me, I'm going to wait to see who I actually need. Instead of guess, because you don't need to really do that at running back. There's often some ones that come up during season that no one expected, or when I'm sure I need those points. And that's why I lean the T. Higgins side. The trade's well balanced. I understand what you mean. And I think Zach has a point about the range of outcomes. T. Higgins probably has a higher percentage number in those top range of outcomes, if you know what I mean. Even though they might have similar ranges of outcomes, I think T. Higgins slides higher.
Yeah, I don't think it's a tier. I think you're tearing down to get Rashad White, who
that's what it reads to me.
Yeah, who we hope is really good. My evaluation of Rashad White was a little less bullish, but he's in a backfield where he should get touches, so it's not a bad move. But if Rashad White doesn't pan out, then it's not a very good move at all.
Yeah. And there is that in the range of outcomes. I think it'll be fine. Again, we pulled off that trade from last week. Dolchitz on a 24-second and a 25-second. Move Laporta, Roschon, McKinnon, and McIntosh. Again, I think we went through this last week. Dolchich and Laporta are about the same value to me, and I would rather have Roschon, McKinnon, and McIntosh on a team right now heading into the season. But I think it's fair. 2 seconds for each. It's probably just an even side trade, and you were doing it mostly to diversify, if I remember right. I'm not really a diversification player, but
I'd rather have Roschon and Laporta than all that mess. And then add McKinnon and McIntosh. I'd rather have that. But Genji, again, this doesn't mean that you're wrong, and it doesn't mean that I'm right. I get this wrong a lot, and it mostly matters what you want to roster. Like that's a thing. Having fun with this is it's a thing.
It's kind of the point.
I hear.
It is a game.
Yeah.
Zach Harris, 12-team Dynasty Superflex. Start 10, 1 point PPR. How do you feel about my pivot off of JT? Traded JT, Marvin Mims, and Jerome Ford for James Cook and Jordan Addison. I think I just commented on this because I forgot about it. I saw it when you asked me, and then you recently replied to me again or something. And I remembered to go back and look for it. I said the Addison side, but honestly, Addison for JT, it's kind of a team situation thing. I'm not going to count JT out because I don't know what's going to happen. He's pretty good young running back. I like those things, but I'm all about acquiring Jordan Addison. So, like you said, it's more of a pivot, but you kind of giving up JT and Addison should probably be a fairly good trade by itself. I think Mims, I don't care about Ford or Cook, but I think Mims was a little bit of an ad, but it's fine.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that one. I think it was as much as it pains me to say this, to acquire Jordan Addison. I think that was a little bit of an overpay to get Addison. I expect Taylor to actually come back and have a pretty good season this year.
Yeah, that's exactly
again.
That's a good way of looking at it. I think it's a good trade because I think Addison's going to be good, but you put the emphasis on he has to be good for this to work out, and that's it's not ideal in Dynasty, but
it's also a crystal ball. Like assuming Taylor plays and either Indy gets their stuff together or he gets traded. Like there's a lot to it, and I get it, Zach. So like, I can't knock you, but it still is it's a lot. It's a lot to pay.
Yeah. In my likely range of outcomes, JT is phenomenal for that team. He's a good running back, and they're very happy they made the trade. But you are also happy to have a really good young wide receiver, and so it's about even. But that's one or two of the boxes on the range of outcomes. And, well, I think that's where mostly my chips would land if forced. That's what I think is going to happen. I also know, again, to Zach's point, I get a lot wrong, and I try to mitigate going with my feelings as much as I can. But again, you were uncomfortable having JT, and you got off it, and getting Addison. I like getting Addison. With Kyle Pitts averaging more than 4 points per game this year. Will Kyle Pitts average more than 4 points per game this year? Yes. I mean, if you're going to give me a yes or no question, I'm going to take the out. Genji, Pete, since you have data since 2000, have you thought of placing players in specific tier buckets in terms of hit rates and points per game, etc.? Yes. It depends how you mean, but this is literally what I do with my data. It's part of my breakout series, which so far has been hitting like fire. I've been doing it for 2 years now and called every top 12 breakout the last 2 years at wide receiver. Running backs have been a little rougher, but also the trends in terms of the tiers and buckets and expectation of the season have been indicating it will be a rough breakout period for running backs. Last year I called Rashad White, and that didn't work out yet, for example. But it's meant to be a good breakout season right now for running backs, by the way. But it's kind of how I function. And yeah, I also put all the data out for anyone else to make whatever buckets and tiers and stuff that they want. But I more look at historical trends. In terms of finding a perfect ranking system, doesn't exist. I'm pretty confident on it. But yeah, my most recent attempt to do something like this is trying to utilize Adam Harstad's idea of value over baseline, but I don't have a good way of translating it into dynasty value in terms of expected years, even when I'm employing his mortuary table analysis. So it's mostly a holistic look. I don't have exacting boxes to create my rankings, mostly using feel. I'm tanking. Okay, yeah, we knew that. Thoughts on Jaron Hall? Jaron Hall, Vikings QB. Don't know much about him.
Yeah,
I was watching some tape. I think he's raw, but if he hits, I think he can score. And this is from Drew, by the way, everyone. This isn't me responding to Drew. I think he can score lots of fantasy points, and Vikings fans have been looking to replace Cousins. Why? But yeah, probably. Everyone hates Cousins.
Yeah, like Hall. Like I watched some of Hall at BYU, and I think your assessment is accurate, but rose-colored. So yes, he is raw, and he does have some athleticism. He has some upside. He was a better passer than I anticipated him being. I wasn't really, I watched Hall as kind of a throw in at the end of my rookie tape shindig where I start in September and go until the draft happens, and then I'm done with my rookie evaluation. So he was kind of a throw in at the end, but he's also a 6-year he's a 6-year college player. Like he's been around a while, so I would not expect Hall to be the guy to replace Cousins. If that happens, that's great. But it's like the Dak kind of running into the position in Dallas, except for even less likely than what happened with Dak.
Dak was a pretty good prospect. I remember him pinging for a lot of people pre-draft. I don't know. The only thing I can add to that, since I don't know anything about him, I'm assuming I have his rookie data in my college database, but I never look because QB is a little bit of a difficult evaluation. I try and avoid it.
Yeah, he didn't do very much, but
yeah, it's also just not a period I'd be expecting a lot of QB breakouts, especially rare QB breakouts. We've kind of had our quota, as it were, in terms of how often, how likely we are to see them. Of the last recent season, I'm expecting quarterback and wide receiver to be relatively stable. Not that we won't see surprises. We see breakouts every year, and we see surprises every year as well. But it's not the area I'm fishing for the unlikely, just in general. Yeah, we actually have a phenomenal QB era. And I know a lot of teams have bad QBs, and the NFL is speculating more on QB, getting more active in getting creative to find QBs, giving players with lower draft capital deeper on their roster shots. But they're not that creative yet. And Kirk Cousins is a particularly good example. Like in terms of results, from this QB era, Kirk Cousins beats like the QB 2, 3 from most eras that I remember playing in. Like they've got a pretty solid one, but it's probably a contract argument, I'm guessing. Zach, will no tight end in the first round still be applicable when Brock Bowers is on the clock? Yeah, I've heard he's one of those. He's going to be a Kyle Pitts candidate.
Yeah, well, and Kyle Pitts was a first-round quarterback for me too, but it was because he was
being valued as 3 first.
Yeah. You could draft him and then trade him for anybody you wanted to, and so Bowers will be I assume will be a similar prospect. Where that rule applies if you're drafting a tight end to have the tight end.
Yeah.
But if you're drafting the tight end with the ability to turn around and trade him on this speculative value and hype, and the fact that we're all dynasty goldfish, and we're like, oh, look at tight end, and then we come back and we're like, we forget that it takes 3 or 4 years, and we're like, oh, look at tight end, and then I love Sam Laporta this year, but let's not get
I like that metaphor. Just every now and again, we go back around and see the picture of Evan Ingram and hey, tight end!
Eric Ebron, what? Noah Fant.
Look, David Njoku, he looks hot. I don't remember ever seeing this before. Brock Bowers is meant to be a phenomenal prospect, and from the little I've garnered, he's going to be. But and I would say to Zach's point, it's relative, right? A first-round tight end is different than a tight end you can draft in your rookie draft and immediately trade away for 3 first-round picks, which was what Kyle Pitts did. So it's all relative, but probably not. Yeah, I'm guessing that rule will probably not hold out there. Mike Oxlong, 12-team 1QB start 8. Would you add Trevor Lawrence to what would you add to Trevor Lawrence to move up to Lamar? Okay, I wouldn't. I like trading into that top QB range, but Lawrence's value right now, especially looking at the trade calculator and recent trades, he's trading and more easily than Lamar, because people don't have to. Lamar's been disappointing for 2 seasons. He's a rushing quarterback, and people don't like those when you get to a certain level of value because they think the injury rates are worse. And in fact, they're slightly better. And so what I would try to do if I'm trading Trevor Lawrence is to get up to Josh Allen or Mahomes. That would be my plan if I'm trying to tier up. There's 2, because Lawrence has kind of entered the tier with Lamar right now in terms of value. Same with Burrow and Herbert. Like there's a little point moving up for that, what I think can be a points per game edge over either of them. And when one, they're capable of it, Trevor Lawrence is too, and two, they're being valued pretty much the same. So yeah, I would try and go up higher. But if you just want Lamar, I think it's a pretty even trade. So you add one of his sleepers and you try and get back some second round pick in some year, to try and make it seem like he's getting something more than he is, or they are getting more than they may be. Yeah, sound fair?
Yes.
Zach's got to go early tonight, so I'm trying to just move it along. Peter the Art, I love Zach's reaction to my draft. I'll take it. Thank you, guys. I should just leave the reactions to you. Genji, DJ Moore sent from mediocrity to mediocrity with even less pass attempts. That's right, Brandon Cooks. Everyone, we may forget now, but everyone wants to talk about how great he is until, suddenly the upside goes. But just recognize that the upside has already gone a little earlier than most, and you just get ahead of the curve a little bit. DJ Moore's fine. He's going to continue to be fine. And yeah, you're right. The situation is also just as.
But T. Higgins is better than fine. And his
situation is too. Yeah,
exceptional. Yeah. So,
how many pass attempts did Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts average in the second seasons? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I have Pro Football Reference too.
Ooh.
Let's see. Drew, I'm willing to bet the Bears' pass attempts will greatly increase this year. I think they need to. If Justin Fields is going to not lose a job, and I think we're at that point. I think it was phenomenal last year. I think he was phenomenal in college, but so far he's had trouble elevating his passing game. Like that's what the statistics bear out. I think he can pass, or at least his college evidence suggests he can. But if they keep on with a losing record, it doesn't matter that he's got all this potential at a certain point to a team. I also think the team is trying. They invested in the receiving core. I think they fucked up a little bit by adding some of the weapons that they did. But with their draft and their moves, they're clearly saying, okay, we're really going to go in for it. If his pass attempts go up, his efficiency is going to come up a little bit, but it's not going to matter if the pass attempts don't go up, because that'll just mean that they're relying on the rushing still too much. So I think that's a question. If they pass more, Justin Fields is probably going to be fine, beat the expectation of a lot of stat nerds, and keep the job and actually win more games. But if they only go up a little bit, when they go up to average or something, his efficiency is going to improve just naturally because that's the way efficiency works. And he's going to continue to be a good rusher, but the stats are going to bear out how that happens is going to matter more than what happens. Pass attempts will come up. He will become slightly more efficient. But if that's just a little bit or regressing to the mean instead of him actually getting better as a passer, then I think it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And I hate that because I've been really rooting for Justin Fields this whole time. Josh Allen had 461 attempts in year 2. And who was the other one?
Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. 432. So that's an average of like 440 something.
Yeah.
Roshan. That is a good comment.
True.
I appreciate that comment. Slater San. Superflex, start 10. Lamar, Dak. Here are the players, Zach. I don't want to read them to you. Already acquired a second for 24 and 25. What, if anything, would you propose for CMC? So this is the ammunition to go get CMC. What, if anything? I think you've got enough. You start 10 starters in a Superflex. So 1, 2, 3-ish starters, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're getting close to the point where you can start pushing for the window, but you're old enough you almost have to. You don't have what you need to get CMC in my league. I don't think. I have CMC in the league, for example, so I've been considering his trade potential. And his problem is now his value in points outkicks his value in Dynasty. So you either need someone to recognize that, and trading a running back right now that value is difficult, or he's just going to stay in the team he's on until someone's willing to overpay while he's scoring, or pay appropriately while he's scoring points. I don't think you got the horses to get CMC looking at this roster. I would trade Judy. If you can give Judy straight up for CMC, someone might be interested in that, but I don't think so.
It depends on
his sleeper status has hit that level.
It depends on what you've got for picks. I think, like, again, it's going to take.
Well, he's got two. He's got a second in 24 and 25. Yeah. He doesn't mention any firsts.
Yeah, so like it's going to take at least a first plus, probably 2 firsts to get McCaffrey. I think
2 firsts is a good rough value, but it's going to be difficult. Like I say, it's going to be difficult to get CMC or someone facing the season with CMC on the roster. Even as someone who's looking to trade running backs, I'm like, probably see how his points per game roll out, and if he stays healthy and try and win. I don't think Judy's enough, and he's about what you've got spare right now if you're trying to stay competitive. But it depends what the guy in your league feels like. Or go. James Cook, gross. Agreed. Zach.
That's probably the best comment so far. Just laughing.
It is an accurate one. I often laugh when I hear that. Team Magoon, part 1 of 2. Okay, 10 team Superflex PPR 1.5 tight end premium. Can I compete as is, or should I try to be trading for more value? Always be trading for value. He's got Kelsey Andrews. I don't want budge. My team is this: Herbert, Deshaun, Anthony Richardson, Lance McCoy. And then his other starters are Wilson, Morrow, Watson. Watson's a great wide receiver 3, to be fair. Addison, who's an even better wide receiver 4. London, JSN. Your running backs, Bajon, Gibbs, Brees. I was going to say you're not competitive, and then these running backs kind of push you over the edge here with these 2 quarterbacks. I think you could see yourself in a competitive window, and you've also got all the value and all the youth. So, yes.
So the question was, the Kelsey and Andrews owners won't budge. So then go knock on the door of the Kittle owner. Go knock on the door of Freiermuth is a good one. I still think that the Giants, like that offense needed. Yeah. So like that offense needed something.
And while I like just paying up for the guy that I want on the team that I want, you don't need to force a trade. Like, literally, you've investigated Kelsey and Andrews, and if you're saying they won't budge, they're not meeting your value, which is the one that matters. And if you showed us the trades, we could say, no, you need to add a little bit more than that. But in a vacuum, that's a priority list. Instead of fussing with this, go trade for Kittle. If you can't, my personal priority list is I try to trade for Kittle. If I can't, you can try Dallas Goedert, but I'd rather Kittle, and it's kind of the same value. And if not, I drop down to Freiermuth, who's going to trade me Freiermuth. And if not, you can go down to Evan Ingram or Darren Waller for roughly the same value. And I like getting either. And I think that gives you a better edge than you've got at tight end right now. Try to keep Pitts because it's a value argument. But you're trying to get a starter there.
And to me, Lance and even Richardson are expendable. And valuable. Yeah. So, you want to keep Richardson because you think that he's got that huge upside. But right now, everybody thinks that he's got that huge upside. And so,
and while I'm trying to answer your question, what I actually also want to say is you're thinking about it a little bit backwards. You know what you want. You're trying to get it. Instead, I would do what Zach just did. Look at your roster and decide what you want to go give away, what someone else might want to improve your roster for this season. So, yeah, I'm looking at Anthony Richardson, Lance, even McCoy. Go check out the Kyler Murray owner. He might be interested in McCoy just for those few games or however many games it's going to be when he gets back. I also, like what I just said about Christian Watson, I think that's a great wide receiver 3. But if you can go get Kupp and the old guy, and that trade is more than doable for a team if Kupp is on the right team who likes Watson, at least on average. You do a lot for your team right there. And so instead, I'm looking, and you might like Watson more. That's fine. Maybe you like London less this year because you've got Pitts or whatever. Look on your roster about what has a lot of value someone might want, and then go look at teams that might like that and see what they can do to improve your points per game at what you consider fair value. Because the Kelsey and Andrews owner are saying no, but there are other edges.
Yeah,
there's Cup. Go try Michael Thomas. Go try Cooks. It can be a whole bunch of different values. It can be Kittle. It can be Darren Waller. But you know what you have that you're willing to give away to try and win this year. Not give away, but trade away, to find those edges. That's the way I'd approach it as well.
Yeah, it's a quasi-competitive team, but you've got the assets to make it very competitive. So
it's a playoff team with a lot of great young players, which has immense overvalue and immense value. I don't know what to call that type of value. The youth value, the potential value. But the thing is, the reason I say you probably should is a lot of that youth is proven. Waddle, Wilson, we're good. I think you're pretty good. And I think JSN is going to pay off. And Bateman, they're more maybes. And same with Addison. But you've got 2 great wide receivers at the top of your depth chart and 3 good running backs. Like rookie running backs, I'm willing to put into that category because they're pretty dependable in terms of results. So you have 3 starting running backs, assuming health of Breece Hall, that could all be and should all be top 12, and 2 top 12 wide receivers. That's what makes me think you're in a competitive window. The fact that they're also really good and young means I'm willing to go out and seek some of that advantage. And it reminds me a lot of Rate My League teams that we've done where like, you're rating high here because you're not only good, but you have a lot of youth and value. So you shouldn't be afraid to push that edge. Like, let's go get some more points instead of some more of this shiny stuff, because you have a little bit of that. I do think Kyle Pitts and Dotson and London should be on your list. I like those players. I think they are good, but they're looking at a rougher season. Can you get picks and point scorers back for them? And that does both for you at the same time, making you more competitive, keeping all the top shiny things that you've got, and just keep rolling it forward. And again, that's why I don't think about it this way. Your owners decide where you can possibly look to move in any direction. It's not about how do I persuade the Andrews or Kelsey owner to understand the way I see their team. Instead, it's just, okay, there are other points available. There's Aaron Jones out there. Everyone hates Aaron Jones in terms of his value. So go get you some Aaron Jones or, any of the names we throw out. You've got a lot of options, but don't pressure yourself. If the season isn't here yet, unlikely things still happen. Your team's going to be good if you make no moves, even by the end of the season, because of all the youth and value you've got that's already proven. Try to make moves, but don't feel like you desperately need to get Cooper Kupp right now, or Kelsey or Andrews, because your league owners decide when the right time is to make any particular move. Well, that's the way I think. Pardon me. Joe McCarter. You have to go soon, right? 10T Superflex on the clock at 107. Stroud fell to me. But I have Mahomes, Burrow, doesn't matter. And QBs are way undervalued in my league. That does matter. Am I stupid for taking Quentin Johnson over Stroud? Stupid? No, because you're considering your league and adjusting to it, which is exactly the smart play, right? How undervalued? I know, Zach, that's a difficult one. I could see myself taking Quentin Johnson because I understand my league. And if he's already fallen, even when he is pretty good for where they're getting him, I'm not sure I'd be able to trade him any better. So, and I'm pretty confident in Quentin Johnson this year and broadly for his career. So, no, I don't think it's stupid at all. The Dynasty answer is just take CJ Stroud. But yeah, if I understand my league well enough that I feel confident saying this, I think taking CJ is fine.
Yeah. And I think that's where, and that's, Peter, I'm going to give you credit for this, but that's like my favorite part about this show and what you've kind of done with this show is, if you go high level in a vacuum, it's Stroud, that it just is like 95 times out of 100. But Joe, you may be in one of the 5 times where the value of getting Stroud doesn't actually register, and it may actually be better to take the value of Quentin Johnson. If if wide receivers tend to be more valued in your league or quarterbacks are devalued and Stroud doesn't ever become one of those top 15 quarterbacks, so you're not going to get what you need to move him. It's not the end of the world taking Quentin Johnston.
Yeah. I'd take Stroud, Joe, because the NG is just a dynasty degenerate through and through.
Well, like that's exactly the right play. Unless you have unless you have all the context, and then it may even be a gelato. Like, Joe, go to your local gelateria, pay in cash, get your change back, flip the coin. Tails, Quentin Johnston, great, let's go.
And Joe, just to make it easier for you to go either direction, because it's your choice, I will tell you to take CJ Stroud. If you take him and he sucks, you can blame me. And if you decide not to take him and Quentin Johnston works out, you can come tell me how much smarter you are. Like, I mean, it's a very small little nugget, but it means there's a little extra motivation in either direction. Which victory lap do you want to run? Because honestly, it's a very fair decision if you just want to take Quentin Johnston. But a lot of the times when I joined the internet or got on Twitter, it was literally I'm not getting this right very often, so I just want someone to give me their opinion. Just tell me an answer. And I realized a lot of the content I most preferred were people who did just give those single answers. Stop giving me all the talk. Just tell me an answer. What is your answer? And you can be right or wrong, but I want what your answer would be. And for me, I would take Stroud in most situations, and I would hope Quentin Johnston fell to me, or I'd try and make another trade or something else. But my process would mean that I'd take Stroud. But your question was also, am I stupid for this? And the answer is no. I actually think you're taking in reasonable context. And if it doesn't work out, I don't think you made a mistake. I think you made a gamble. And they're all gambles, man. Well, gambles, but you know what I mean. There is no certain thing. No one does know for sure. And we just try and make the best decisions we can. So I'll tell you to take CJ Stroud, but also that you're not wrong for taking Quentin Johnston, if that's what feels right for you in that league. And you can blame me in either direction, just as like a little backup there. Either way, you're good. Wasn't your fault. It's mine. Brendan, Turlington. 12 teams to flex full PPR. Started the startup draft with Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Bryce Young, and 3 picks. With my first 3 picks. I don't know why I said it that way. Trevor Lawrence, because I'm high on him, and others for value. Trade 1. Question mark. Team with heavy wide receiver asked for Trevor Lawrence. I'm not surprised, because Trevor Lawrence is he's a bit of a target for a lot of players right now. Depends on the trade, man. I mean, you can trade Trevor Lawrence for a wide receiver at value. If it's JSN, if it's Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, you're looking at a pretty even trade. Beyond that, you're expecting pluses. But it also depends how the rest of your team plays, what you think of your league, what you think of yourself as a dynasty player, like we were just talking about with Joe. If you're John Hogue, the straight up answer here is no. QBX, you need to add more QBs and then hope to get wide receivers and running back somewhere else. So there are other ways of playing. Personally, I would consider trades, sure, but I would need to see the trades to say whether I would or I wouldn't, because it's not really about the build at that point for me. Is there a better answer there, Zach? Do you have one in a vacuum, like you would always trade Trevor Lawrence for a wide receiver?
No, I think you hit it. It's not. It's the what you can get for him versus what you think he is valuable for your team. I mean, and it is. I mean, this is the Hogue thing.
This is the advantage of trying to play that way. Like, you have Trevor Lawrence spare, technically. I mean, that's a huge advantage in a super flex, which gives you this option. So keep trade cut. Traylon Burks, JSN, Addison. Screw you, Bob Gilchrist. I never liked you. That's not a decision you put in front of a man. That's not fair. Keep trade cut. I would.
I'm keeping them all. I'm running away.
Yeah.
Scoop them all up and go. No,
I choose the cyanide pill. I think I cut Burks. I trade JSN because he's drafting at the highest ADP. and I keep Addison because I don't think there's that big a separation between JSN and Addison. But Zach, go ahead with the real answer.
No, that's exactly it. JSN's going at wide receiver 13. That's your trade. As much as I love JSN, it's keep Addison because I think Addison has a little more ceiling and a little more value insulation than Burks, and it's cut Burks. But I love all three of those players. Like I am actively trying to roster all three of those players, except in leagues where Bob Gilchrist takes Treylon Burks ahead of me, and it just throws my entire life into a tailspin.
Zach Harris.
In a good way, Bob.
I mean, of course. I stick by the screw you comment, Bob, just to be clear. And what are some sleeper taxi guys you are trying to get currently? Any thoughts on Jeremy Ruckett? I literally just... Please read my articles. I'm not generating page views. DLF's always on me about it, and I think it's because I'm always on here telling you about it, and no one goes and reads my damn articles. Right now, I'm looking at sleepers per ranker, basically. Who are the players that rankers are ranking that aren't being drafted and vice versa? So the players that we should all go add on waivers. Heavily running back centric for obvious reasons. Personally, what I've tried to go look for on the waiver wire, I have found some really remarkable wide receivers on the waiver wire before now. Like I found Justin Ross. I found Kenny McIntosh, for example. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to pick that guy up. He just had a positive news cycle. But assuming that your waiver wire is per ADP on average, the guys you normally find there, James Robinson's falling onto the waiver wire after New England, after he got signed by the Giants, but then Barkley signed. He's sometimes being cut. But the ones I've literally added, Keontae Ingram, Jordan Mason, I've picked up quite a lot. And who are some of the others? It's all the backup running backs right now. I'd have to go look at my article, honestly. It just published. But yeah, there's a lot of backup running backs to go roster right now. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for running backs that I think have either been pretty good, but are also pretty young and relatively small sample, that aren't being added right now because no one likes them just yet. No one's in that mood. Oh, I got to log in. Really, DLF? And the Keontae Ingram and Jordan Addison, the only two, Jordan Mason are the only two that stick out in my memory because I've literally gone and added them in leagues. Zach, do you have any better names while I look this up?
No, I mean, I think you're attacking it absolutely right. And Zach, to me, it's a lot of the rookies in this current class are players that I'm interested in trying to add, but I don't know if you're considering them sleepers. I mean, they're third and fourth round rookie picks, so maybe they're not sleepers, but guys like Gray and Bigsby and even like his name escapes me. Ended up in Tampa.
We're having a rough night.
Tucker, Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is a back end player, and honestly, I think Kayshon Boutte makes the Patriots roster, and that's a wide receiver, and we don't usually like to do that, but I think
they're mostly being rookie drafted. But I'm definitely interested in adding them if A.T. Perry or Xavier Hutchinson falls to the waiver. I've looked for those guys too.
But what are we what are we talking sleepers like Gus Edwards and that sort of thing? Like, because he's a guy that I want to roster. Like, I get excited when we're doing a rate my league pod, and I scan down a guy's roster and they're like Gus Edwards. I'm like, yeah, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yeah.
I haven't done this for the other positions yet, mainly because running back is where you should first go looking for waiver wire ads. Like the back of as much of your bench depth as possible should be running backs, especially this time of year. The names that showed up in the article that hasn't published yet, it turns out, but I have written it. James Robinson, Kenny McIntosh, Zonovan Knight turned up. Also, a guy who I literally had to look up, Jaleel McLaughlin. He's a depth running back in Denver, apparently. I had never heard of him, but he's being drafted. This isn't something rankers pointed out. People are drafting him in mocks. and rankers haven't figured it out yet. So I thought that was an interesting name. Also, Dendrick Pierce, just behind Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the depth charts, 200 pounds. He carried the ball a fair amount in college. And he's fairly young, so people are just ranking. No, they're picking him up in ADP in that case. There are some others in the table, but those are the ones that really stood out to me when I broke it down. And yeah, from my leagues personally, I know I see Jordan Mason on the waiver wire a lot and Keontae Ingram. So. EJD, Fields was a QB on the worst passing team in the NFL. They don't pass because he sucks.
I mean,
there is a relationship between how much you pass and who the quarterback is. That's essentially what I'm saying. This year is going to tell us how much of it, for me, my money, how much of it is Fields and how much of it is the team just valuing his rushing potential a little too much. And so far, as I talked through with Chris on one of my recent interview podcasts, the statistics seem to bear out that it's because of Fields and not to spite Fields, if you know what I mean. He's been fairly inefficient relative to historic trends and such. QB evaluation is difficult though, man, and I'm always kind of rooting for the player. Super Cooper 03 went from full rebuild with 14 picks this year to now trying to compete. Traded for Mixon, Waller, Connor, Danny Dimes. Do you have any other cheap win now targets? Thinking Kamara maybe. Kamara's interesting. I normally go up. Eckler's too high, right? Aaron Jones has been on my running back list all off season. That's a pretty good one. We just mentioned the tight ends earlier, but I think Ingram and Waller, if you're looking for cheap, I think Pat Freiermuth is cheap relative to the value increase. Like, I think that could pay off again, but I roster him mostly, so I'm not trading for him. And Kittle. Kittle has actually been a trade target for me this year, and that's a high value one as well, which, isn't always a dynasty trade we suggest. But I think he's got the edge.
The one player that really sticks out, if we're talking about older players who are potential values, are reasonably cheap to acquire and have big upside, is going to be Michael Thomas. Like, Michael Thomas they're talking about him being healthy for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah.
If he is healthy, if he manages to escape training camp unscathed, he's tied to Derek Carr, who is absolutely a first read pre-snap quarterback. And Michael Thomas gets open in exactly the way that Derek Carr loves to exploit. And so that's a play. Like, I took Michael Thomas in the Scott Fish Bowl this year in round 10 or 11, and I'm very happy with it. I think he was pick 108. Like, he's going off the board right now at wide receiver 58 in DLF's ADP. Like,
you're saying cheap target specifically, so I'm gonna go like outside pick 100, say. Because, again, this is part of the series. I've been writing all off season looking specifically this. But if we compare it to redraft ADP and look at outside the top 100 picks, the players that redraft values more than Dynasty right now, which seems to be the best definition of what you're looking for. Tyler Lockett, DeAndre Hopkins, Dalton Schultz, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, weirdly, and Hayden Hurst. Again, we're talking deep in the 200s there, so it's not like we're throwing around second-round picks to get those last few tight ends. But those are the players that redraft really think are going to score points this year, whereas Dynasty is like, this value sucks. And so a couple of wide receivers and a couple of tight ends. If you're looking for running back additions, it's going to be tough because Dynasty really hates them. The top values outside of pick 100 is like a 15% difference. It's not much, man. James Conner, Jeff Wilson, Cordero Patterson. Dynasty redraft is still like, we want to roster Cordero Patterson. And Dynasty is going, who's Cordero Patterson? That's done with, surely. And so almost for free, it's an interesting running back hold. And that would be my answer. The cheap targets down there, the cheap targets for players that are more expected to score points this year. And those are the names from Fantasy Pros versus DLF. That's how I'm coming up with those.
How do we feel? So this is
Michael Thomas is a really good one. So is Brandon Cooks, all the old guys.
Well, this is way outside the box and probably a little ridiculous, but I think you can acquire Corey Davis for a third. And no, hold on. So listen,
I get it.
But so acquiring Corey Davis to me is like acquiring a backup running back. Because I think that he has the talent to, in case of an injury, be the wide receiver one on that team. Not that you're wishing an injury on Garrett Wilson, but it's the backup running back, because most receivers, you don't have that, like you don't have that established talent. Man, I think he is talented. I think he's had a bad run of it.
That would be awesome, and I would be all over Twitter with that news. Put it that way. I know it's not the same play. Corey Davis, if it works out, would be phenomenal.
Well,
something I find undervalued.
Anything. You don't have it's literally nothing.
That's what I said. The upside for Corey Davis, if he hit, would be good for Dynasty. If you're just looking for points, like a wide receiver 3, a flex play that you didn't expect for free, again for nothing. Same depth chart. McCall Hardman stands out to me. Like if I was playing best ball this year or underdog, I'd probably roster a bit of him. Again, I'm not expecting a lot, and it's because it's so deep. But we know the guy can do a Gabe Davis impersonation before Gabe Davis was a thing on a week-to-week basis. And for free, if you're looking for points, there's some free points down there, Anyway. Gun to my head, I'm taking Burks over Addison. Well, that's why we hate you, Genji.
I mean, I like Burks too, but I have Addison just a head
smidge. Me, it's just about risks X number of years into their career. So I'm the nerd. Bull the Knicks fan. Hey guys, got our Rate My League podcast last week, and I wanted to give you all a big thank you from my Pigeon boys. Hey, I remember you. We all really enjoyed that and would strongly recommend to anyone considering. I really appreciate that, Bull the Knicks fan. We're actually out of slots. We actually filled all the orders, and there's probably not enough time between now and the season to do more, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing those. So really appreciate you guys letting us. And thanks for getting in touch. I know we said it, but I didn't expect any of you to turn up, to be honest with you.
All right, Pete. I've got to go. Look over there for me. I'll catch you next week. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you. We'll see you next week. If any of you are at the expo, come say hi.
Have fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. I'm going to try and finish off the comments we've got as best I can by myself, but now I'm all lonely and stuff. I can't. I guarantee I'll get to the midnight mark. Drew, my QBs are Deshaun Watson, Anthony Richardson, and Kyler Murray. Thoughts on trades to get to Mahomes? One of the QBs. Then add Devontae Smith, 24 picks, so on and so forth. And if you want Patrick Mahomes, you're going to have to pay up. My ideas would basically revolve around what their team looks like. If they have Patrick Mahomes and nothing else, they might be more interested in Kyler Murray because he's like a dynasty hold candidate, right? So you could add Smith to Murray and maybe a 24 pick, and they'd be really interested in that because Murray's got a lot of upside and they're not competing right now, and so on and so forth. But to get to Mahomes in most leagues, I think you're going to have to offer shiny things or proven value. So it'll be Watson, a 24 first, and Smith, and it depends how they feel about Smith because of his BMI, and some people don't like it. To get into the Mahomes tier, you kind of you need to work the trade to fit the team because it's such a high value of team. Allen, Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase are the only players right now. Normally, we only have about 5, 6, and right now we have about 4 that kind of don't have a value. They don't have they're worth 3 firsts or 4 firsts. They're kind of worth whatever the team is willing to take because there's pretty much no good trade for them. And so I would try to adjust it to what they think. Now, for example, maybe they're huge Anthony Richardson believers because there's a lot of upside in Anthony Richardson, to be fair, and we don't know. I would cash out on all of that no matter what else I had to add to it to try and get Patrick Mahomes because I'm removing all of that risk that maybe he's not got that upside for someone that is Patrick Mahomes. So Anthony, I would try to trade Richardson a first and Devontae Smith for Mahomes. But honestly, there is no fair trade, quote unquote, for Mahomes. It's just what that team is interested in taking. So looking at their roster is going to help you more than anything else, or starting up a conversation with them. But yeah, he's easily worth any combination of any of those things that you've got listed in a Superflex, at least. Joseph, love the show. That's Joseph saying it, not me. But thank you, Joseph. I'm a strong championship contender in a 12-team Superflex PPR league. Higgins is my wide receiver 4 and 5. It's pretty strong. I was offered Condre Waddle and a 24 first and early 24 second. Should I consider it or keep Higgins? So Higgins for Condre Waddle, a 24 first. I don't actually think this meets the threshold for Higgins' value. Just ignoring where your team is at. If you want to trade Higgins, I would go look at the running backs, if that's presumably what you're trying to improve here. No, what you're trying to improve is your value. So it's just a value bet. No, if you're trading him just to keep the cycle rolling of balancing your points per game and value, and you don't, quote unquote, don't need Higgins, then what you need is max value, not a plethora of lesser things or a volume of lesser things. You need 3 first-round picks. It's probably worth 2.5, but half picks don't exist, and where you're calling the shots because you can just have T. Higgins or trade him for value. That's where my mindset would be. So yeah, no, I wouldn't do this trade unless it directly improves your points per game this year at fair value, or adds all of T. Higgins' value to your roster since he's your wide receiver 4 and you don't need it in the player, in your opinion. Then I'm not doing the trade. So I would either look for trades that directly improve my team this year for the players we just mentioned. Can you get Mahomes? Can you get Allen? Can you get Kittle? Can you get Kelsey? Can you get Kupp? Plus the value difference, or a fair value difference at a first or a second, or two firsts, depending on which of the players it is. Or can I get close to at least 3 first-round picks, like first-round pick and Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're in that second tier of players and can sometimes be undervalued. I tell you what, who's a good target for you? DK Metcalf and a first. DK is in that tier, but he's undervalued in that tier. So sometimes you can get a clear first added to DK on it. Mostly I find switching positions the best way to search for trades, though. So I'd probably go look at the Kittle owner, go look at the CMC owner. And that's the way I'd think about trading him. But this trade, it's a plethora of lesser things for a top 12, I think he is now, Dynasty asset, and at least top 12 wide receiver. So, no. See, I should just say yes or no. Then I'd be able to get out of here in 10 minutes instead of giving you the reasoning so you can pick and choose the parts that you agree with or don't. Anyway, Super Cooper, to Joe's point, I've seen a lot of Superflex leagues that is only 10-man, and QBs don't get valued like they do in 12 and 14. That's a fair point. Again, your roster setup as well as the people in your league really determine a lot of this. Just as much as a need for QBs in 10-man leagues, just not as much as a need. That's true. Also, it increases the demand for the upper tier. Like, I think that's something people meet. The smaller number of starters or the smaller number of teams, the more value the absolute studs have. Like, if you're in an 8-team league, you just need studs. Depth doesn't matter. You need Kelsey, you need CMC, you need Josh Allen, and their value increases a little bit. While, like you're saying, the depth of the position decreases. So it kind of spreads apart the tiers a little bit more, But yeah, good point. Good point. Slightly certified. Slightly certified. That's what I'm going with. 1 of 2. What's the move to always get better? Pay more attention to your mistakes than the victory laps that you can run. Honestly, that's my move. But making a push for 24 talent, 2 24 first, looking early and 2:24 seconds. Burrow, Cousins, ETN, Ramondre, Bijan Robinson, Zonovan White, I'm guessing, Tank Bigsby, Roshan Johnson, Tajay Spears. Where's number 2? Wow, Chase, JJ, Godwin, Deontay. That's a really good wide receiver call. Donovan Peoples-Jones, which is just unfortunate. Gabe Davis, at this point, you know what he is, and I don't need to argue about it. Johnston, Quinton, that's pretty good. And then, whatever. Tight ends, young, good, solid, upside, got it. So what's the move to always get better? Look at your past mistakes or decisions and see what you get wrong and right and wrong more often. Honestly, that is a move. But for this team situation, how do you look to keep getting better? To always get better. I wish I knew the league format a little bit. Start 9, 1 QB. Good to know. Let's see. Burrow, Cousins. I don't know how to answer this in terms of always get better, but looking at your team, you don't have positional advantage at running back. I mean, you've got good running backs, don't get me wrong, but you don't have that super edge. Burrow and Cousins are close, but it's not Mahomes and Allen. You know, it doesn't have that definite positional difference maker. Other QBs will do that every year. There's 2 or 3. But there's about 5 right now with the proven potential to do that. Dak Prescott being one, by the way, heads up everyone. But it's close enough that that's not the position I'm highlighting. Running back doesn't have that edge. It doesn't have that CMC and Derrick Henry heyday, Saquon Barkley heyday, points per game advantage over other running backs to beat teams on a week-by-week basis. You know, your wide receivers do have that upside. Like Chase and JJ clearly have that upside over the position or over the flex starts. But running back and tight end isn't weak. They're good, but they're a little weak. So looking at that team, those are the first things. If it's my team, that's what I notice. Like, I'm good everywhere. What do I need to improve on the most? Probably running back is where my head's at, which means you don't have to do anything right now. You can wait for the season to unfold and look for the best options from the right teams at the best time. That's the way to play running back. So, outside of waiting for the season and trying to get CMC because there's an injury risk and maybe, you know, running back is a little bit more variable, I look at the tight end position. Dallas Goedert's great. I actually really like rostering Dallas Goedert, but a few moves I've made on really good teams, on teams that I think are really good, is adding to Dallas Goedert to get to George Kittle. Goedert's got Kittle's points per game upside in his range of outcomes, but he's never quite done it. And on a team where I'm really pushing, I will add a second or something to Dallas Goedert to get Kittle. And people are very often really willing to do that same position trade because it's Dallas Goedert. They're moving across as far as they're concerned and getting a second. But for a competitive team, I think the points per game advantage that George Kittle can give you in a year is very much worth it. And so that might be a move I would consider. But that's really tight. Yeah, because Goddard is pretty close to that if he doesn't pay off that way. So you're probably just holding right now. But those are the 2 positions I'm looking at the most, looking for improvement. You don't need to be desperately trading away anything for picks. Your players are young and good enough that you don't need to be pushing more value down the line. But that's always an option if you get good trades. You don't need to be trading. No one needs to be trading for CMC right now because his value's good. Everyone knows what he is and what he's capable of. But it is a team that in season you might find yourself like, hey, I could really use the best running back in the league ever. But you don't have to do that right now. So yeah, those are the only moves I can think of right now at this point. You're kind of in a holding pattern. And it's kind of a good roster as much as it is a struggling roster, to be honest. Genji, we just praised Stroud. Isn't Zach Wilson Justin Fields with no mobility? Fun fact, the first play that Stroud ever made in college, according to Travis May, was like a 90-yard touchdown run. And also, he doesn't... Every QB runs a little bit now, even the Trevor Lawrence types of the league, unless you're Mac Jones, who is the only, like, less than 5% rushing QB left in the league, I think. But also don't discount the fact that one, his lack of mobility is oversold for sure, but also there are many different ways to play a position well. And just because we haven't seen one do it recently, Mac Jones has been fine, to be fair, and doesn't mean that that's out of his range of potential. So just evaluate the player personally. And I think relative to ADP, you don't even have to pray. He can just be okay. You're okay. And that's a really good value for where he's going right now. Elijah Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson, that's a good name. I see a lot of people pick up Luke Schoonmaker. I don't get it from his rookie profile, but sure, he's a tight end, whatever. And if you're talking about depth guys to add, running back, then tight end, then quarterback, then wide receiver, and that's even in one QB. Wide receivers are the last thing I'll make an excuse for to get on my roster. I try to be as strict as possible. Those are my rules, mainly because of that video and that article we wrote last year. I think I mentioned it on here last year, but I definitely got a YouTube video on it of where we get more points from than we should based on ADP. And that's literally the order of where it comes from. If you're looking for cheap or lower down the draft ADP category, tight ends get at you more often, then running backs, then quarterbacks, and then wide receivers. Wide receivers don't do it much and don't do it often, even when they do. Wide receivers don't come from nowhere, except for rookies, obviously, and very often at all. Some noob. 12-team PPR, start 9, no tight end premium. Is Brian Robinson plus Njoku plus an early 24 third plus a 25 second a decent offer for Kelsey? No, it's not a decent offer. No, it's a bad offer. A few different rules being broken here. If you want something really, really shiny, really good, Travis Kelsey is the pinnacle of points per game advantage. Yes, he's old. He might be in a window for the team looking to move on. So good target. I like it. But most teams don't want to give you something that you want for something that they don't want. And while Brian Robinson is interesting, right? He's an interesting running back to roster this year. He's got upside. We shot and we're still pretty good. So maybe there's even more upside and he could work into a larger role just based on his rookie profile and everything that you know about Brian Robinson. David Njoku is probably an undervalued top 12 tight end, but top 12 tight ends don't matter that much. A third and a second. What in that trade offer makes someone go, I want that thing? Now, you don't always have to be throwing the sexiest, nicest thing that you personally want, but they do have to see something in the trade that they personally want. So if you're trading for Travis Kelsey from a team, look at their roster. Are they competitive? In which case, they just want to move aside in points and recapture some of that value. They might have that mindset because my team's getting older. I'm still competitive. I don't want to tank. I don't want to lose these points. But I'm aware I need to get younger. Travis Kelsey's probably not got 5 years left in him, et cetera, et cetera. So then you look at your tight end, who's Njoku. And you might say, add a first-round pick to Njoku. That's a really shiny thing. He's not overly interested in Njoku, but a first-round pick is something that he might want. So then it's just a measure of how much does he fear Travis Kelsey's age. If he fears it too much, he'd accept that trade. If he doesn't, he's not going to accept that trade because Travis Kelsey is worth more than a single first, and the difference in points per game between David Njoku and anyone else he picks up off the waiver wire, like a Mike Gesicki. So I'm running you through that just to explain why. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, I think if you just think through trades that way, I'm trying to come up with better offers because quite often I come up with very bad offers. And those are some rules I try and employ for myself. What in this trade is going to make them say, I want that thing? They might not want that trade, but there is a thing in the trade that they should, I think, more often than not, be interested in acquiring. So if it's not a 24 first, then presumably the team that's got Travis Kelsey is not. If the team that's got Travis Kelsey is not competitive, he doesn't want David Njoku at all. Because if I'm trading Travis Kelsey away and I'm not competitive, why would I be interested in David Njoku's points? At which point, none of the players here or on your team become really interesting unless they're young. If you're trading him a promising rookie, like a Kincaid, or even an Anderson or a Quentin Johnson, then you might get their attention. And then you balance the trade with the risk of Travis Kelsey by saying, I'll give you the shiny young thing. If you give us me the points per game upside of Travis Kelsey and a first, because they might not notice they're trading away more liquid value. So again, those aren't perfect examples of trades. I would look at the DLF Trade Finder. I would look at the trade market and the trade valuations from Dynasty Trade Calculator. It's a really good calculator a lot of my friends work at. Or the trade calculator on DLF to get an idea of where the values of players on your roster are and the value of Travis Kelce is in your league format. But then the trade offer I try and send would try and follow some of those rules. What does that team probably want? And then what am I putting in this trade that's really going to tempt them? It's not that any of these things are bad or that it wouldn't add up in a trade calculator. Maybe to something like, it probably wouldn't, but Travis Kelce's value, it's more that there's nothing in it that they can look at singularly and think, I want that thing. I don't know why I went through that deep, but it was a good question. I don't get that question often. Is it a good or a bad offer? And I think it's something I'm trying to work on, and I think a lot of us could get better at. Genji, Jordan Madison, Keontae Mitchell is a really good name for deeper dives as well. Yeah, I think I said Jordan Mason, but I keep changing his name, but I definitely said one version of it. Some new 12-team PPR start 9 non-tight end premium. Want to win now? You want Kelce, so yeah, that's a good move. I have Kirk Cousins, I'm guessing, JSN Juju. No, that must be Christian Kirk, JSN Juju as depth. Okay. Burks or Keenan plus Kamara and Najee. So the second part here is a trade, right? Would I rather have Burks or Keenan Allen, Kamara, and Condre Miller? I'd rather have Burks because it's Dynasty, and even when I'm trying to win, I'm trying to get all sorts of value, including future potential value. I think Keenan Allen and Kamara, to your point, are more likely to score a certain level of points this year, but I actually think Burks has that in his range of outcomes this year as well, and that carries more value upside or the long-term upside, which is always more interested to me in Dynasty. If I'm just trading Burks away, he's basically valued as a single first. That would be a fair value for Burks. Keenan Allen, Kamara, and Condre, yeah, it's a fair trade. If you don't like Burks or think his 2022 season has that in his range of outcomes, I think this is fine. You got Keenan Allen, so it's fine. Might not be the best trade, but it's definitely a fair trade. Genji, the first weeks they tried to keep him in the pocket as a passer was horrible. I think this is Justin Fields. They just scratched everything and let him run around for 13 weeks. There was definitely that moment where they realized what they designed for him didn't work, and they just let Justin. And he's a phenomenal rusher. So, yeah, you definitely saw that changeover. And I think what we've seen this offseason is them trying to build a different passing system for him. And again, I really do think he's got it in the tank, but he's really going to need to prove it this year. That's where I'm at. I don't know the future, but I do know I can describe it that accurately. Back to buying older guys, thanks. Yeah. And I might buy him, but Thomas is such an ugly name. Yeah, but that's also where you get values from. Most of the best values I've found over the years have been something I've been, like it doesn't feel good to do. Brandon Cooks, I'm not happy to trade for value for Brandon Cooks right now. Old guys get it done, though, and so in certain situations I'm doing it. Slightly certified 10-team. That does matter in general. It also means that you definitely don't have an advantage. Well, you have less of an advantage at quarterback and running back and tight end. Wide receiver is the only thing providing that value. So I would also add, go check out the Mahomes and Allen owner. You actually have a lot more here that could get you up there. If you had something to borrow, that might really tempt, depending on their team situation, the Mahomes or Allen owner. And I want some of that in a 10-team league. Sleeper, Gabe Davis suffered high ankle sprain early last year, and then Allen hurt his arm and couldn't throw deep. I think on a week-by-week basis, Gabe Davis has as much upside as anyone. I don't see him ever increasing or sustaining level of volume to make him one of the perpetual dynasty guys. But yeah, I don't mind Gabe Davis's value right now, especially if you're drafting for the season or looking for cheap points like the McCall Hardman play. So yeah, that's fine. No, not Corey. Just go by Juju. I have spent. Then again, to be fair, I can't claim I'm buying Juju now sneakily. I have so far overpaid for every Juju share I have ever rostered, except for the ones I drafted in his rookie draft, because I have constantly been on that train. He hasn't been he hasn't done badly. He's been a top 24 wide receiver, but he has disappointed relative to what I expected several times. And I'm still doing it because his value just keeps falling because when players don't hit their mark in terms of the value we pay for them, their value drops. So the thing is, Juju missed his mark, but still kept being a top 24 receiver. And so it went too far. And so I'm in this perpetual cycle. I keep having to like Juju and own myself for the L's that I'm taking at the same time. But yeah, Juju's good. Also, Bateman, Rondell Moore, also easier trades than Juju in my experience. Samson Simpson, good evening, gents. Hey, Samson, welcome back. I'm just trying to run through the last of the comments because Dynasty Outhouse may have quit on us. I'm not sure. And Zach is running him and everyone else to the expo tomorrow. So he had to go to bed early. So I'm just trying to get it done. Brian, now that all these injuries keep popping up, how are you guys feeling about your Scott Fishbowl drafts? Good. It is injury season. That should have been the title of it. I don't think I've been hit by any of them yet. It's one of the years where I'm getting lucky. I can't even remember my team. Let me take a quick glance. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. Oh, I drafted injured. Aaron Rodgers, Barkley, who's now signed. So that was my big fear. Roshan Johnson, Jordan Mason. Look at that. Damian Pierce, Deuce Vaughn, Adams, Bateman. I'm a little sad about Bateman, but I kind of drafted him as if he was injured, so I'm not too concerned. I actually added McCall Harmon on this redraft roster. Quentin Johnson. Wanda Robinson is still out, but he's been injured since last year, so I don't think that was new. Zach Ertz is also out, but I don't think that matters. I haven't been hit by any of the injuries yet, so far I'm feeling pretty lucky. Corey Davis or Richie James? Corey Davis, but yeah, fair comparison. X Brian. Also, can you guys tell me your favorite pick you made in your Scott Fishbowl draft? Where do you think you got the best value? I got top 1%, 99th overall in that league analyzer they made. That's awesome. That's awesome, X Brian. I think Rate My League did some of those, so you might be talking about the Rate My League system. Congrats. I can tell you that Zach's favorite pick is Michael Thomas because he was just talking about him, and he got him in the 10th round, I think, of Scott Fishbowl. That would be my best guess. My favorite pick, I felt good at Kittle in round 4, but it also feels like a reach based on the way the rest of the draft went. Juju, Bateman, Quentin Johnson. My best value, because I tried to draft a value at every pick and I didn't find huge swings. Saquon Barkley falling to me in the second round, who's meant to go a few spots earlier, is relatively a high value, but I mean, it's not out the ordinary. I drafted it in a really strong league where ADP was not so shaky. The reaches made sense. I didn't find a lot of excess value. I think my best was probably... I really reached on kickers here. I was desperate. My best was probably Quentin Johnson in the 11th. Again, rookies points per game upside in the second half of the season kind of a play. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. I did like getting Kittle on the 4th, though. That seemed good. But it wasn't exceeding value. Again, my league's pretty sharp. I should not have chosen the Cracker Barrel division. I tell you that. Puff Pass Kick, after Zach goes to bed, can we talk about how awesome first-round rookie tight ends are? Yes, we can. They actually kind of suck. Kyle Pitts is the exception, and so was Evan Ingram, to be fair. But again, I would point out, like, the best tight ends have never been drafted in the first round. They've never been the first tight end drafted in rookie drafts, apart from Travis Kelce, but it took an extra year because he got injured that one time. And so there was actually a value dip before it happened. Yeah. First-round tight ends and rookie drafts have been a rough go, but that's because the hits that we're looking for are so rare and unusual. It's Kelce, Graham, Gronkowski. These guys have been incredibly unpredictable, and they have very little in common with each other. Well, they have a few things. Kittle, undrafted in the NFL, you know? Later, Zach. I'm catching up with myself at least. Brian, what are your top 3 players you think could join Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Jefferson, Chase this year? Oh, okay. Or who's going to add to that top tier list? I don't know. No one has the hype coming in. Like Allen, I was on the wrong side of it, by the way. Had that hype of the Bills, loved him, and he's gonna. And there was a big horde. The same with the Patrick Mahomes. Like I was part of the Patrick Mahomes horde of he's good. You don't get it. Don't talk about me. Talk to me about college QB passing systems. I don't care about air raid. Same with JJ, who's there's a big crowd of JJ rosterers, and then he had one of the best points per game seasons ever. So and Chase was that dude for all his rookie draft as well. We tend to double down when we get things right. So this year it would be Anthony Richardson. If he goes off this year, he'd jump into that tier pretty quick, I think. I want to say JSN and Addison, but those are kind of my guys. I think in terms of looking at the landscape, the biggest truther community, if they did something amazing this year or next year, Anthony Richardson's got the easiest path in there, Yeah. BMI Twitter is awful. BMI arguments are awful. So is BMI, actually, a literal trash stat that's not good for assessing health. Like, it's not good at what it was intended for, which is actually racism, but it's also not good for what they later tried to adapt it for, which was judging health across the country. And so it's literally not used for any of the reasons it was initially conceived. Again, because the initial one was a racism. And this, if I remember right, and the second one was, it turned out to be fairly trash because it's about body shapes and sizes and like all that affects BMI and it doesn't accurately assess health. Twitter is awful. I mean, X is awful. I always kind of like Twitter. Samson, mute button tends to help. Yeah, depends what you're there for. I've met all of my friends there. Like, this is how I found a community of people that I enjoy and do all of this stuff with, so it's hard for me to really hate on it. Chase and JJ on the same team is nutty buddy. That's a really good wide receiver call. Peter, you better get on the Shroon train before it's too late. It's one of those ones where I'm just going to own it. Like, I have an evaluation. If it doesn't work out, I try to be the quickest to adapt first because I don't want to be wrong twice. But there's no point in me mealy mouthing it. Well, I think maybe he could. No, he doesn't look good to me. Sorry. Peter actually thinks of what the other people want in trade negotiation. This man needs to be protected. That's fair. I do suck at trades. Genji, I agree, loads of laughs. Also, this trade offer for Kelsey is terrible. That's true. I can swear here, but for some reason I always avoid it. It's something about having kids, you get used to it. I don't know. Samson, it's okay. He's just a noob. He's learning. I'll learn to be more toxic, I promise. Pierre, how many leagues do you play in? A small secret is I got bored and added too many. I've been playing in 5 leagues for the last 3 years, and the last 2 years I've actually tried to wake up because I've stopped playing as actively as I want to. I was trying to get more active. But in doing that, I got bored of the lack of activity. Like, you can't do something every day. If you only have 5 leagues, there's barely anything to do most of the time. So I added a bunch. I've got 3 new leagues on Sleeper, 2 new over here on MFL. So I haven't counted recently, not including redraft. 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. That's not including the Scott Fishbowl, the EFFC. So too many. I've got to cut down again at some point. But now I feel obligated to all these new leagues. Peter loves Juju. Too much. What do you think about Dameon Pierce draft ADP in the early 5th? I drafted him in the Scott Fishbowl. I don't think he's great. I know exactly what he is. He's capable in an offense where he should get volume. And we were excited about that for Madison and Tony Pollard, who, to be fair, both have better efficiency stats and so on and so forth. I think he can break out into the top 12 on volume alone this year because he's in the career year to do that, and there's no real threat to him getting that volume. So I think he's a decent value for competitive teams. I think, it's not exactly an exciting one, but I've ended up picking him up a lot of different places because of When I'm in a mock and I have an early 5th, he's always there staring at me. And I just want to I'm trying to go wide receiver heavy. Like, I have no T. That's obviously my natural strategy. In both the Scott Fishbowl, let me tell you about my EFFC draft, which is a really fun draft. It's basically the SFB of Europe. I'm trying to earn money for a bunch of different charities, but specifically, their main focus is mental health in sports, which I think is pretty awesome right now. And I'm having a good time in the Club Lang division. It's fun. So far, I have drafted, it's a super flex, Justin Herbert, Bijan Robinson in the 2nd round, and then I went AJ Brown in the 3rd, trying to get back to my roots, right? Followed it up with Russell Wilson, which I feel a little bit shaky on at this point. Then Travis Etienne, Damian Pierce in the 6th, by the way, Genji, or whoever said it. Followed by DJ Moore, because I'm desperately trying to get back to wide receivers. Followed by DeAndre Swift. Like, I have done almost nothing but draft quarterbacks and running backs because that's the value that's falling to me. And Damian Pierce fell to me, in my opinion, a little bit in both the Scott Fishbowl and the EFC. In redraft, he seems like I want to go wide receiver, and he's just sitting there. And I ended up taking him both times. I'm sure you have many options, but I'd love to apply to fill in whenever guys ever need a body. Sure. That'd be fun. We don't have many guests on, to be honest with you. It's just Zach, and occasionally Outhouse turns up. But if we're ever looking, I'll keep you in mind, Samson. Thanks. Genji, I was just typing Anthony Richard. See? Same wavelength. Trey Lance. Again, the way I play, the question isn't, I'm never going to know until it happens at quarterback. I think it looks like the team is shaky on whether they're going to try and find out anymore. The draft capital they spent is a little while away. Brock Purdy did so well. They have a roster with, honestly, studs at every position. They're ready to try and win. I don't think they're ready to try and experiment or ready to try and develop. He could definitely rock with that roster, but as they have continually proved, almost anyone can rock with that roster. And I think if there's any question at all, if Brock Purdy can execute that offense, they were pretty happy with Jimmy G. And I think they'll just go back to being happy with Jimmy G. If Lance can be that with his rushing, that's what they want. And if it's not feeling like they see that evidence in practice and everything else behind the scenes, just based on their lack of enthusiasm for him starting this year. So, yeah, that's where my head's at. I think he's more risky than likely at this point. But, yeah, I hope he's good. I root for the player, you know. Nick Lowinger. Sorry, I'm terrible at the names. If I have the 101, Bijan Robinson, and don't have a strong QB2, so I'm thinking of exploring a trade for Gibbs, would you do that? Would you try to do that? And what do you think it would take, including owning all my 23 and 24 picks? You own all your 23 and 24 picks. That's the way I'm going to read that. Like, you don't have to go get them back. You already have them. All right. You can always make trades. What you have doesn't determine what trade is good or bad, though. It does determine what trades you might be more or less interested in. So that's a good point, just to be clear why you should be interested in it. Gibbs is a really solid target this year in drafts. To move back that far to where it's not that far. It's like max, I would take him. You should probably take him over JSN at the 102, but I'm not going to. I'd probably take him around the 104. So depending on where you think he's going. To trade back one spot, we said add a 24 first to the 102. So any further back that you want to go adds additional capital on top of that. But that would be the floor minimum. To trade back one spot, I would need at least a 24 first on top. To trade back 2 spots, honestly, I think pick 2 to 4 is kind of a tier. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I found that's it. I had to reason it through, but that's what the value is. It's trade back 1 spot or 3 spots for that matter. Whoever's interested in doing that, wherever you think Gibbs is going to go, you need to ask for their 24 first, and hopefully as low as first from the worst team possible would be best. But yeah, I think that's the price. Would I do that? No, I probably want Bijan Robinson, but I think it'd be very fair to. I think that's fair. I think Gibbs is a very good prospect. So yeah, I probably I will also have Jason and Addison over him, but Gibbs is a very good pick there. I think that's a clear tip. Samson, I applaud you for playing redraft still. There's a lot of fun in redraft. Okay, I play in the Scott Fishbowl and the AFC still, and honestly, every time I do, it makes me thirsty for it. The angst and anxiety of a dynasty roster or trying to be active in a league that's not gonna be for a large portion of the time, or there's hardly anything to do most of the time. Redraft can be a lot more fun. You can just look at Christian Watson and say it doesn't matter. That upside is definitely worth it, instead of having to do all this background work on how often players improve, how much, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I absolutely do like redraft. I don't have enough time for it, considering everything I do in Dynasty. But yeah, I still play. 100% agree with you, Samson. I only play in one redraft league. Now that's been around since 2011. As long as you're having fun. I do best ball on underdog. That's what I tried to do last year, like, try to get my redraft fix. But honestly, I just didn't have the heart to plug $100 into it. I earned money last year, but I just never got around to it. I've been really busy this off season, I think. But I do like drafting. That's part of redraft's appeal. You can just keep drafting. Nick, appreciate the help. I would want to get rid of Bijan. I'm interested in getting Gibbs to pair with Bijan. I'm interested in getting Gibbs to pair with Bijan. How would you get rid of Bijan to pair with Bijan? It's a 1 QB league. Sorry for not being clear enough. I'm sorry for not understanding. I don't know how you would get rid of Bijan Robinson to pair Gibbs with Robinson, if you know what I mean. Unless it's like a David league and you already have one on your roster or something. I'm not sure I'm understanding exactly. I wish I had more questions. I don't. No, honestly, I really enjoy talking to you guys, obviously, and girls, and everything in between. But with that, Zach, honestly, the quality of the answers does go downhill, you have to admit. Oh, Samson, something else. Always good to catch the show, Peter. Love the insight and great questions. Everyone, good night. Thanks, Samson. And yeah, same to everyone. Good night. I'm going to do the look behind you thing, but then lag behind actually pushing the button. So the effect is somewhat muted, mainly because I always want to just spend an extra few seconds just to check no one actually has some questions. Because technically, I don't like doing the disappear thing. Oh, James. In competitive Dynasty League, do you have any theories on trading with someone to hurt or freeze out another team? If it's in the rules, you're allowed to do it. Do I specifically try to do it? No, because I think it would feel a lot worse to think I'm so mega brain that I know how to, and then it goes wrong. But there are some moves, and sometimes when teams, one of the biggest ones is quarterbacks are least valued in the startup and rookie drafts. So just not caring what's on your team and taking the right player, like we were talking about earlier with Stroud versus getting Quentin Johnson, even though they don't value them, like that's where the odds are. That player is more likely to have more value or sustain value and have longer term value. So you can freeze people out by the mistakes that they make, but I don't try and freeze them out by specifically like drafting their handcuff or something like that, unless it's good value. Strange question, I know, but trading is key, especially when playing at a high level. Oh, you mean like trading for things they might need or when they get injured? No, that's all. If it's not in the rules, I agree with pushing every edge. I do try and, most of the people I play with friends, I'm not actually trying to make them mad, but honestly, most people that I play with, most people that I know that play in Dynasty feel the same way. Like if I don't spot something and you find a way to take advantage of that, like it's a game, we're having fun here. None of us putting our life savings on the line, so it frees you up to just be. You're meant to try and getting a cheeky win is still a win, and it's in some ways more fun as long as everyone's being friendly about it. Peter, give me some thoughts on Christian Watson and Elijah Moore and how you would have them valued. Christian Watson's worth a single 24 first, for example. And I think it's very fair. But I think that first can do more for you with better odds of improving your team in one direction or another. But I think that's the value I have. I can't remember I have him ranked, but you can check it out on Patreon or DLF. Elijah Moore is unique, which is good. That's fun, but it's really difficult based on the way I play to really put a value on that. To give you some perspective, a player who did well in their rookie year has a better chance of doing well or being that guy that we're searching for on average more of the time. But only 35% of those players go on to be those guys. So their second year is really important to me. And Elijah Moore's second year is just one big old question mark because I don't know what to do with that. That didn't seem like he just wasn't good or didn't pay off on what he did in his rookie year. It seemed like Zach Wilson couldn't get with him, or they didn't like him, or the team. I don't know what to do with any of that. And then he moves teams. Like, I have no historical comparison. Not that it's, oh my God, wild events. It's kind of muted events. But in terms of finding past examples to look for, I don't have anything. So what I go back to is I liked his rookie profile. I thought his rookie season was decent. I actually thought it was above the line of decent. So if it's a second round pick and my team can sustain losing that for a player that has to score points this year for it to pay off. He's basically an old guy with less certainty, but he has more dynasty upside if he actually does well. So in a very particular situation, if I have a second round pick, I think Elijah Moore is a decent target. But he's really unique. There's not really much else I can roll up in that. Christian Watson, I think he's Chase Claypool, but I could very easily be wrong because of the limited time he played. His touchdowns are going to regress for sure, and his points per game was 11.9, which means I think his upside is a top 24 wide receiver. It's not that Aaron Rodgers is gone. It's just I don't think he showed the ceiling that some people do. Because I think he got mostly the role that he could earn on that team, and I think he was specifically schemed into that high touchdown role, which is good. It's good for fantasy, but it's not great long term. So I'm mostly just playing the value on it. James Tucker agreed. It's a recipe for drama, though. That is true. Elijah Moore, gross. I mean, all right. Nick Lowringer, I'm drafting Bijan with the 101 in our rookie draft this year, which is in a couple of weeks. I'd look to, you're looking to add the 102 to the, okay, I'm with it. I don't think you have the horses. Most teams wouldn't have the horses to get the 102 after drafting the 101, because the value of that 102 is at least 2 firsts in 24, presumably, or a later 23 first and a 24 first. And you're probably going to have to add a player onto it too. What is Gibbs worth, and should I try for it? That tier of player, I mean, he's worth 1 rookie pick, because that's what it is. To trade into that rookie pick, what I've tried to do, and the few times I've been able to do it to get Addison, I've added like the 6 and the 12, the 106 and the 112 together to go up to the 106, the 104, the 105 to get Jordan Addison. Like, I've done that a few times, and that's the same tier. So that's basically what I'm looking to do. I don't want to trade my 24 first because that could be anywhere. But if I have 2 23 picks, then I can package them up to move up. So that's the type of value you're looking at. That's the only trade I've made to do that. So I don't have any good player evaluations. I would say specifically try to avoid trading the 24 first. Just seems like you're betting too much on what we know. But, I mean, that would be fine if you added a later 23 first to a 24 first. I'm assuming you don't have that many 23 first. That's why you're asking, though. So you're going to have to default to a player that's worth a first and a 24 first to go get him. Like, if you could add a 24 first to, who could you possibly roster? Michael Pittman, wide receiver. Or Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, the sleeper wide receivers who are good, solid, proven top 24 upside, but don't have quite that ceiling. And it's not a running back, those are some options. Someone was shopping T. Higgins and I didn't pull the trigger, but now I regret it. Thoughts on the type of roster that should trade or sell Higgins? There's no roster where you should sell T. Higgins. I mean, he's young. He's proven good. So, I mean, that's Dynasty universally approved. The only time you should trade T. Higgins is when it's a really good trade or when it does something else for you. Like you're a competitive roster and you need to go get more upside at a different position maybe. So T. Higgins into the running back or the wide receiver or the quarterback could definitely make sense on the right roster. Like the team above, he was like his wide receiver 4. And it's like there's lots of ways to explore advancing your team other ways. Get extra value on top with a running back or a tight end. That's the type of roster I guess you could. I don't know there's a team where you should. He's fine. There's no should for Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. There's no team that needs to get rid of them. Outside of my team sucks, they're probably not going to get drastically higher valued, so I may as well trade them for all the value possible. But then it depends on what are the trade offers. If you don't get a good trade offer, you just keep T. Higgins and you're fine. Hopefully that makes sense. Coworker claims Elijah Moore is hungry, loads of laughs, and a great sleeper. I mean, I saw him listed as a great sleeper in a fantasy magazine lately, and I can see the argument. I think the laughable thing there is the certainty with which people acquire it, or the genericness of he's a sleeper. I mean, sure, but for what? Especially in Dynasty is really the question, or in redraft for that matter. But yeah, I appreciate. I will chuckle along with you. The hungry thing, like I root for all players, but so much of what we think of their attitudes or whether their attitudes are good or bad, one is nonsense, and two, it's just about what we hear because that's what some media outlet wants to portray, right? I got to imagine every player in the NFL who knows they can make and break the rest of their lives and their families' lives by doing well. They've all got to be hungry, right? Then again, you do hear about Baker Mayfield. So maybe the privileged few don't have to feel like that. But I got to imagine most who work their whole lives to get to the NFL, then they get there. I mean, they got to all be wanting it, right? Obviously, there is no universal. Like, clearly, Josh Gordon was struggling. He wanted it, but that came second to his health concerns and, so on and so forth. So a little nuance in there, but I got to imagine they're all hungry. And also, professional football players means that, hungry or not, they're all trying to do their best job. And it's kind of another one of my defaults. Gibby is Dynasty running back 2. I don't have him quite in the top 5 yet. I've got him as 6. I still see. I'm still not as sure on the top range of outcomes for Gibson because I still think he's more top 12, not top 5. He's more Swift than he is CMC or Kamara, but I will be very happy to be proven wrong, and it is in his range of outcomes. Whoever has the 102 won't trade cheap, or no, shouldn't either, or at any, or unless they're savvy. They can't compete. Yeah, again, team situation can sway it. But yeah, you're exactly right. On the clock, in a draft, like there's literally no window possible. The rookies as high as they're gonna get. They're as happy to be drafting as they're gonna get. Like it's almost the worst moment. Unless they particularly don't like this draft class or that pick or their team needs something else. Yeah, it's the worst window. Any hope for Justin Shorter in a deeper league are not worth a roster spot. I've seen that name before, but honestly, I don't know too much about him. Let me remind myself. Justin Shorter. Penn State player. Wide receiver, 6'5", 228 pounds, listed on his college profile. Notably shorter in the NFL. 5th round, 150th overall. I like him because he was drafted so late. I think that's probably too deep for most Dynasty teams to be rostering wide receiver, but I don't watch the tape. And, if you do, that is an area that you can exploit. It's information I don't have, I don't think he's worth the roster spot in most Dynasty leagues, but I'm not going to tell you not to roster a deeper drafted sleeper that you like, but yeah. Genji, not worth it. Is Hutchinson on waiver wire? Not on my leagues. Well, actually, he is on one because I can't find the running back. I won't drop any of my running backs for obvious reasons, everything I say. and I can't find anyone to trade for me where I get an extra roster spot. And I had to choose between him and my depth running backs, and it's the depth running backs. I'm sorry, the process is the process. Thank you. Sorry it took so long to explain, but no, it wasn't your fault, Nick. It was mine. And no, that's literally why I'm here. I love talking to you. I'm enjoying having this conversation. So you've got nothing to be sorry for. Or grateful for, to be honest with you. You know me a favor. I appreciate you. Genji, single QB, I'd offer a 24 first and a 24 second. I would jump at that chance. I was putting a much higher valuation on the 102. Joe E. Oli? Oh, I'm sorry, Jojo. Hi there. Quick question. Which side do you like more? Richardson plus Walker for Gino plus Bijan Robinson? Bijan Robinson. I will take my risk at the Dynasty running back 1 and not the quarterback. I'd actually take the risk on the risky running back over the risky quarterback selection in Superflex. Again, the quarterback is probably the better answer, looking for upside and stuff, and where he has the path to being one of those guys in the top tier of value. I have learned not to take my risk there. I think I get that wrong more often than not, and I have no way of giving me an edge, whereas I have a lot of things that help me be pretty persuaded that Bijan Robinson is who I think he is, kind of a thing. And Gino's fine, solid, good. I'm assuming Walker is Ken Walker as well, which I don't think Bijan Robinson, I don't think he has the same upside, even if he didn't have Zach Charbonnet. James Tucker, Mooney and a 25 first and stuff. And Marshall backup running backs, yeah. For Quentin Johnson. I like Mooney, but yeah, I would pay that for Quentin Johnson. And you got extra added to that. Yeah, I'd throw all of that just for Quentin Johnson. That's fine. You got the first and Mooney. What's the take? I think you're underrating Quentin Johnson a little bit. I really liked his rookie profile. He's kind of the lost wide receiver in this class because everyone's hot for JSN and Addison. You got Zay Flowers, which there seems to be a big. If you watch, you see a lot more upside. His stats are fine; they're pretty good, and he got draft capital. That's where I'm at. But a lot of people see a lot more upside. Like I've heard Antonio Brown comparisons in terms of the role that he was playing in college and how good he was at it. So, I mean, yeah, if you're in on Zay Flowers, you're really interested. And then you've just got the Quentin Johnson. Great prospect, downfield player going to Justin Herbert, who's going to throw down the field more and is already a really good team producing a lot of fantasy points. Like that's the guy that gets forgotten a little bit. And Mooney, I think, is really solid. His best breakout window was last year, though. I kind of side towards Fields continuing to struggle. And that's why Mooney didn't break out, but he's got less draft capital. They added other pass catchers. So it's not that makes him worse or they're going to vacate his targets. It just means that teams losing somewhat faith. And with less draft capital, that's always a negative sign. I do like Mooney at value, but I'm much for Quentin Johnson just as a dynasty play. Those are the thoughts I can come up with right now. Keep Trade Cut has Gibbs running back 2, Sleeper running back 5. There you go. I'm just wrong. Genji, I'd love big time throws, and if I'm not mistaken, Geno Smith was number 2 behind Josh Allen in 22. Peter, maybe you could go into a bit more depth on big time throws. I can't. I don't do QB metrics. I do know it's a relatively new metric that has stats since 2014. The problem with QB metrics, where there are so few, has so significant volume, and we have so relatively few development processes in terms of draft classes that have come in, work through their progress, and then we find out who they are by year 4, 5, 6, whatever, that there's relatively little historical trends I can possibly hope to pull up on a lot of the good new QB metrics. Big time throw is interesting, and it does seem to be associated with the quarterback, not the roster or the receiving depth chart, based on my conversation with Chris on the podcast, however. So it looks like it has a lot of promise. The problem with QB stats, where QB is such a difficult position, just based on other stats that have investigated exactly through the same arc, a lot of the promising signal ends up being regression to the mean, random sample variance. There's really not a lot that consistently helps us out with quarterback development, at least, or projection into what they're going to do the following season. But Chris did seem to really like big time throws, and he does a little bit more of that than me. So no problem. Gino has DK, Lockett, and now gets J. Yeah, they're building around him too, but he also just had a fantastic year. So. But it's also the Seahawks. I mean, never rule out the Seahawks Seahawking and just doing something you don't expect and that's weird and mostly revolves around mashing people into their line of scrimmage as often as possible, no matter what the score or how often they lose. Have we projected market share for each player? Yes. I bet Quentin Johnson ends 21% target share. You want projections? They're up on Patreon too. The last time I updated them was about 2 weeks ago, and I posted it back on Patreon. But let's see. For this season, Quentin Johnson's market share projection based on my ADP consensus ranking model. His target share is coming in at 16.8%. But then again, the market also has Keenan Allen priced at a place where he's only getting 17% target share per game. So, yeah, they're undervaluing Keenan Allen a lot more than Quentin Johnson overall. But Quentin Johnson and Dynasty undervaluing is a lot more interesting, you know. I actually have overall... I don't have it on the quick lookup team sheet, but I actually do have the projected overall opportunity, not just target share somewhere. James Tucker, how do I get in a Dynasty league with you? Well, right now, it's going to be pretty tough because I've already added too many. I am thinking about doing more Patreon leagues. One, because I love my Patreons and we have a good time in the Discord, and it doesn't seem like I do enough with them, and I thought that'd be a fun way. I only have one so far, and obviously it's filled. I don't know, man. Sorry. Get in the Scott Fishbowl, join my division, or watch this space. If I ever start another Patreon league or have another opening or have open spots in my leagues, I will share that information and try and get people to join. So, but I don't have like a regular Trade Addict League thing that Russ does. Hype is low on Madison. It was high earlier in the offseason, but then everyone got bored of it, I think. But if I can stay put at running back, yeah, he's a volume play. He should get the job done. And he's actually been pretty decent. Not Tony Pollard decent in terms of efficiency and target share, but pretty decent in a relatively small role behind Dalvin Cook. Yeah, he looks like he should be able to get the job done. Enough, you know. For his ADP, he'll get you the points you need. Meh on Matt. Yeah, that's probably best describes exactly what I just said there. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's fine. I'd avoid at price. Really? Has he gone up? Last time I checked, he was like behind Damian Pierce. What are the rankings I've got over here? Running back ranks. These are consensus ranks across 5 or 6 different sites, and then I do a little value calculation on them too, based on last year and their career year. Let's see, Madison. I have him as running back 21? 21 running back overall across industry, dynasty, and everything else. And he's behind Damian Pierce. I mean, if you're looking for a running back outside the 5th, 6th round, or in the 5th, 6th round, I think Damian Pierce is your choice. And then Alexander Madison is pretty hot. To your point, though, like Cam Akers and Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift is right behind him. And I like all of those guys more because they go a little deeper even in drafts. James Tucker, Nico Collins or Puka Nacua for bench spots? I actually don't target either player. I probably roster Puka. I don't have a lot of hype. I know some people love his rookie stuff. I'm not overly enamored, but I think based on the draft capital they spent and his overall stats, yeah, he's got upside there. Let me see. Nico Collins. Nico Collins was a sleeper last year that people were tagging me mad because I said he would get basically what he got, and I didn't think people. I thought people were getting a little too hopeful for vacated targets there. Let's see. Nico Collins is wide receiver 53 overall. And Puka Nacua is going to be lower than that, surely. Yeah, I'd rather take the bet on Puka Nacua at value. What's the best way to predict volume for offenses with QBs, no sample sizes like Love? It's a good question. Ritter, Howell, and the rookies scheme predecessors volume. When I was projecting team volume, like trying to create a formula that projected team volume, what I did was basically a bastardized version of something James Simpson, I think his name is. He does projections, and he was actually one of my ins to learning how. I do a 3-year regressive model on both the head coach and the offensive coordinator's averages, and do the average of those two regressive models, and it creates pass attempts and rush attempts. That's how I was doing it. So it's a history of what the coach has been doing, even when he's on different teams, assuming there's some sort of connection there. But honestly, it's a really rough situation because I think passing attempts mostly comes, like we're talking about with Justin Fields. It's really this complex interplay between what the coach wants to do, what the quarterback is capable of doing, and what the receivers he's trying to throw to can help generate. So, especially where there's so many questions on that offense, it's going to be pretty rough to do. No team history and such. Underdog has him as 58.3, running back 18. Okay. He's gone. Best ball ADP is almost its own thing at this point because everyone spends so long talking together on social media and stuff, and they kind of drive their own little micro market within that market. But sorry, I shouldn't talk out of church. I don't know enough about Underdog this year. James Tucker, I'm trying to get into college football, but find it boring compared to NFL. Do you think true fans of college football have advantage in Dynasty, or is it just guessing the NFL game? Go LSU. I don't think a Devy player in my Dynasty League, I don't think has an advantage over me. No, because while they know about it earlier, I have all the time I need to catch up, do my full process and evaluation, and know where I'm at in the right players. They might have an advantage in that they're a little bit aware of the depth. If they're a serious Devy player, they know everyone that used to be in the top 3 before it ever got towards the Dynasty. So they might have a little advantage on those guys that might not notice, but then I get all the time I need to listen to Twitter, to listen to Devy guys and catch up, even to those smaller edges. But I mean, yeah, it could provide an edge. Depends on how you play, how much time you invest, and stuff like that. But broadly, I don't think Devy provides an edge in a Dynasty League, but I think Devy could be a very fun format. And it could, it could provide an edge. It depends on who you're playing against. I would put anyone in my Dynasty leagues up against a Devy player, and I don't think they have an advantage. But compared to an average player, I'm sure an average Dynasty player, they might have a little edge on those sleepers. But again, we get these 3 months to listen to me, to listen to Travis, to listen to all the Devy content out there. And I think an average Dynasty player is so plugged in at this point. We're all on our phones, even if we're not only on football Twitter, Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's league swing. Sorry, I just died for a second. I don't think it's league swinging or anything. So there's no reason to do anything in fantasy football unless you find it fun. So if you don't enjoy college football, I wouldn't say you definitely have to grind out the Devy, man. No. Play what you enjoy. I think we can catch up as much as we need to. You guys watching Hard Knocks, I'm predicting a lot of people putting Garrett Wilson as a top 2 Dynasty wide receiver, courtesy of the hype machine. He's top 12 and he's already top 5-6 in Dynasty, and that started back a month ago. So yeah, I can easily see him getting there. It made Swift the top 3 run. The Hard Knocks bump. It's underrated, but it does happen. But it's the same as the training camp bump and the off-season just buzz. Anytime we see a player do something good on camera, it's exciting to get exciting about players because technically, secretly, we're all just fans, real big fans. Am I watching it? I will if I can. I don't go out of my way to watch a lot of TV, but if I get a chance, Hard Knocks will be one of the things I look up to try and watch. Yeah, because I like these players. I like the environment, even if I don't personally think I glean a lot from it. I enjoy it. Yeah, I like following the story. Hutchinson, Xavier Hutchinson. He's a skinny, taller wide receiver in Houston, if memory serves. Limited role, projected into the NFL, but he was actually fairly good in college relative to the conference he was playing on. He didn't get a lot of draft capital, but he's interesting enough. You should check him out. Run your process over him, see if you like him. Sharadic. Sorry, I'm terrible with names tonight. You found coaches' tendencies are stickier in terms of predicting volume than QBs. Yes. Well, it was just a good baseline method, because QBs and coaches tend to have a connection. You'll notice, like Aaron Rodgers played with the same head coach and offensive coordinator for a number of years, but you also want to. It's also a way of throwing into a random variable in there when you take the head coach and the OC, especially when you've got a little bit of different coaching history. They've been on different teams, because ultimately you just want 2023, in this case, is kind of unpredictable. So you want to take the best regressive trends of the people who have the most influence, head coach, offensive coordinator, and you could throw quarterback in there. That would be fine. And then you want to throw a random variable at it. And the way I did it was by creating a little regression model for all three, taking the average, because that's random. It's random what that average would be on, especially if they have different histories. But yeah, and again, honestly, if you're looking for if you're trying to do projections, you don't have to create team projections. Shortcut. Mike Clay's projections are free and weird and wonderful. My projections are pretty cheap, and they create team projections, even though it's a model based on ADP, what players should do if ADP is right. So it's a little different, but it creates these volume numbers, and you just take them. I would really recommend Mike Clay, because he's literally ESPN's projections, and he gives them away for free. And you can just take those numbers as read, because that's probably as good as a result as any model that me or any nerd in his basement is going to create, right? I mean, Mike Clay doesn't know the future, but he works really hard, and he's got a pretty consistent history of doing well. Not the best. I've seen people beat his projections on a year-by-year basis. I think I've beat him a few times in certain positionals. But like as a whole, a holistic who is best, it's 4 for 4. But Mike Clay's pretty good, and he's given away the projections for free. So you could just take the team projections in terms of volume and then work on the player projections from there. Honestly, a very fair method. But I understand you actually might just be more interested in, because honestly, I just like creating the models. But just thought. There's like a million ways to skin a cat, and there's even more than that to create a projection model. That's what I find out in my time making projection models. Genji, you're right about underdog, Pete. Although the volume amount of drafts going on daily, plus the ADP being refreshed every 2 days, seems like it's pretty. Oh yeah, it's reliable. It's interesting. It's edgy. It shows you. I've got it as one of the sources in that in my own model. I just don't rely on it particularly heavily, because it's also got a particular set of goals. It's emphasizing like the upside matters more. It's like redraft to Dynasty, right? Like McCall Hardman and Corey Davis and whoever Zach mentioned, Corey Davis and Gabe Davis. These guys have very particular upside to a best ball scenario versus a Dynasty or a redraft one. So it's also a very, I think, while it's reliable and a lot of sharp people are involved in it, it's like forgetting league format. We forget that it's very, what's the word? It's customized at this point. It's like the FFPC. Should be the sharpest ADP in the world. But it's also, when you get very good players playing consistently and reliably, to your point, what they will do is they go and look at the rules of that system and try to exploit every edge to the 9 millionth degree. That's what sharp players try and do. Not me, but like the really great players, the great poker players, the great football coaches, frankly. They go and look for the most obscure parts of the league settings or the game rules, and just squeeze that little edge on the outskirts as much as possible. And where underdog is that competitive, that sharp, with that many good players playing, it doesn't create a drastic difference, but it is max difference from how it all function versus your and my 12-team Dynasty league or redraft league, you know? It's not a great difference, but it's at max separation, because they're trying to maximize all those little edges because they are so sharp. And while the differences aren't big, they're trying to max them out. And I just like to point it out. It's not like again, there isn't a huge adjustment to be made, but it is true. Like in Dynasty, Alexander Madison looks fine. And then you look at Underdog and you're like, oh, that's way too high. I hate Alexander Madison. But it's which church is speaking in, I guess. I don't know. And James Tucker, told Ritter is a sell. I think Ritter, Pickett, and Love are QBs I would try to trade before anyone sees the results. Not because I'm not rooting for them or I can't be wrong, but I'm not expecting a lot of upside at the position. I think right now, I'd rather cash out on the potential. I think they'll be fine. They'll be startable. They'll be fine. But I think any potential value will disappear as the season plays out. I think people will see them as the bridge quarterbacks that they are by the end of the year, is what I'm saying. And I could be wrong. Like if Jordan Love just is Aaron Rodgers last year wasn't very good. And if he just puts up that level of performance, people are going to be stoked about it, right? If Christian Watson can go off for 12 points per game again this year and score dramatic looking, because he's very good at it, touchdowns on long pass, people are going to love it. So it could be very wrong. But yeah, I'm scared to miss out on if he's the next, don't be scared of those things. I mean, you don't have to be scared. You just have to know that you won't know. No one knows for sure. Everyone's going to convince you that they knew after we know for sure. So the best you can do is whatever your process is. You can borrow mine for a minute. If you don't have one, you can borrow Zach's. You can borrow anyone's as you learn or develop your own. But you just got to find something you feel confident saying, I don't know, but I'm going to lean this way. I'm going to throw my shoulder, because at some point you have to make a decision, right? Behind something. And that can just be you really like Ritter, right? You could watch him. You could follow him from I mean, I'm okay. Have your fun. And you could just always root for the players that you want to do well. Perfectly fine way of doing it. But if you're asking me in terms of where he was drafted, the fact that he's taken a delay to get on, the fact he's getting a job because of the way that he has, and the performance we've seen so far in college and the NFL, running those through historical comparisons, he looks like he'll do fine. He doesn't look like you should be worried about not having the starter there if he's the starter for the next few years. But again, I say that knowing if he proves me wrong, I'm going to be the first to shift course. Like that's, again, I want to learn from my mistakes. So Jalen Waddle, I was kind of humming and hawing Jalen Waddle. He did great. Now I love him. I love him more than anyone else. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I really liked last year, but I put him in the same category with Darnell Mooney. I want to learn from that mistake. Now no one is higher than me on Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's not overreacting to catch up, but it's recognizing that the upside that I didn't think was there is actually there. So I will change tacks when I really have to, when he proves it. But you just got to find something you want to put your weight. Because again, at some point you have to make a decision. So don't be scared. If you like the line for whatever reasons, just throw your weight behind it. Because I can be wrong. Everyone can be wrong. In terms of, again, the way I've counted it, the odds are against it. But, I mean, everything's got bias in it, to be honest. When I bet on a player against market, it's hard to cash out when the time is right. If you're trying to play with a process that's more about the way I'm describing I try and play, it does take discipline. It's like Zach trying to trade running backs at the height of their value. You know how hard it was to trade Saquon Barkley after his rookie year? It must have been really hard. I don't think I did it. I just kept Saquon Barkley. And it is hard. It takes a little bit of discipline. But what I always tell myself when I'm making moves, not based on the right feel or I really love a player's profile or whatnot, or drafting Stroud over Quentin Johnson, even though I like Quentin Johnson, is just remembering what you're doing is not betting against a player. We're still rooting for the player, but we're accepting that we're not smart. We don't know the future. We don't know anything better than anyone else. It's actually trying to stay humble. It's not trying to be giga brain. I know that this is the right move. It's trying to stay humble that you don't know. So what happens more often according to your process? It's just a decision that you can make. It can be tough, and it does take a little discipline because we all start playing just because, again, we're player fans. We just want to draft the players we love and play the players that we love. And you can't just play that way if it's too anxiety and causing. But yeah, it can be tough. Trade away T. Higgins for JT. It's even. competitive team versus team that's could be competitive but is more interested in value, I would prefer the T. Higgins side. Wide receiver 1s are a hard buy in my league right now. That's fair. Any wide receiver 2s with wide receiver 1 upside to go buy before the season starts? I mean, yeah, plenty. Jalen Waddle, but I'm assuming he's a wide receiver 1 in your list here. But let's see. Waddle, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith are the 3 knowns, right? I'm assuming you already know about those guys. So scrubbing those off the list. Trying to remember my depth charts. Brandon Cook doesn't really have wide receiver 1 upside. Let me push through the players here a little bit because I can't remember my depth charts. It's late. If you're talking about wide receiver 2s in terms of ADP, Marcus Brown is a wide receiver 1 for his team. He's a wide receiver 2 in fantasy, and he has wide receiver 1 upside. I think Rondale Moore has wide receiver 2 upside in fantasy. So I don't think that passes your sniff test or your question here. Thielen did it? No. No. If Elijah Moore's doing well this year, Amari Cooper is still the wide receiver 1. Michael Pittman. Already said Waddle. George Pickens? I don't like it because I don't think Pickett's going to... I think Pickett's going to score more touchdowns this year, by the way. I just don't think he's going to be overly Aaron Rodgers-like. John Dotson? Not really. Oh, you know who is listed as a wide receiver 2 on his team right now in Dynasty and on ADP and in projections? I think he has wide receiver 1 upside. Oh, wide receiver 3 on his team. Wow. Rashad Bateman. That's a name I'll throw at you. Yeah, I like Rashad Bateman that much. Who's the other one I was just going to go check? Oh, Quentin Johnson this year. Yeah, he's listed as wide receiver 3 by ADP as well. I mean, the consensus ADP I've got right here. Yeah, those are the names. And remember, there's not many that produce... There's like 4 teams every year that produce 2 top 24 wide receivers. So that's probably more than enough names to be considering. Ron Rivera sucks. I don't understand how he continues to get his head coaching jobs. Wouldn't be able to judge. Want everyone want to work, but he should be a coordinator by now. Also seem anti-dynasty in personnel choices. Yeah. Yep. I understand the feelings towards coaches. I don't know who's good and bad. Ron Rivera might be good, might be bad. But I would say I've been talking about the same coaches since I started this, and it's pretty clear some of them aren't hitting the mark. Like it seems like we should have higher turnover or more new names every year because it's a really difficult job, but it seems like they don't have enough of the great ones, personally. Probably his last year. Don't really see why Eric Bellamy would leave Kansas City for an OC job. I hope that guy gets, again, a new name. Give me someone who's had success, shows promise. Let's just see what they can do. It's like quarterback. Like, why not? Because having an okay one is not good enough. Projections are essential, but I always bet against them, especially Mike Kelly. That's fair. You're the man, Peter. Good night. Thank you, Rambo. Love your movies. Genji, Clay is pretty good. I think he's a definition of holistically, if taking everything in, like, work ethic, the results, I think he's as good as overall good can get. I do know 4for4 has been the highest projection outlet consistently until they removed their projections. They were doing so well from the competition. Like, I think we've proved it. We don't need to keep giving these away for free. So yeah, John Paulson's amazing at it. And we disagree on vacated targets, by the way. Projections make fantasy football fun for everyone, but injuries and Rivera ruin them. Yeah, reality ruins fantasy football, if you ask me. Projections aren't going to be right. Yeah, and if you start from that premise, they're really useful and interesting, right? A projection model can be built to do a variety of different things. Project what you want to be true, what you think should be true, or what everyone else thinks is true, or try to accurately predict. That last one that everyone thinks projections are, it's actually the rarest projection model of it. Like, very few people are trying to project what's actually going to happen. They're mostly trying to learn from what we think right now. Most of them are trying, including Mike Clays, is trying to figure that out. What's reasonable to expect based on what we expect? That's the most common and the best projection systems. Robert, how are you doing? Welcome in. I meant to have left about an hour ago. Do you have any advice for players familiar with redraft but are new to Dynasty? Yeah, join DLF, I guess, is a brand. Check out the Dynasty Dummies podcast. That's my co-host podcast. Or Dynasty Crossroads is a unique flavor, but that's mine. Certainly try and welcome you in. Get active on Twitter. We will talk. We're all happy to divulge information. I think I've done a podcast on this, and I've got a YouTube video on how to start, and a few on how to win Dynasty and how to start Dynasty. Slowly. And by that, I mean don't add a lot of leagues. What I mean is adjust slowly. Points are still really important. The only real difference between Dynasty and Redraft is value exists. Because in a redraft league, the only thing matters is who's going to score more points. So the only trades that happen are, I think this player is going to score more points, and I think this player is going to score more points. Let's switch. But in Dynasty, you can actually bet on the value of that player. This player has more points. This player is going to have slightly less points for a longer period of time. So we trade that, right? This other source of value. That's literally the only difference, this value thing that exists in Dynasty. Outside of that, Redraft does a better job at predicting who's going to score points. So you already have an edge on knowing who's going to score points. The only thing you have to do is be gentle or be slow to take advantage of that edge, because Dynasty does a better job, and Dynasty ranks and the Dynasty players in your league will also do a better job of knowing who's going to have that value next year and the year after. That's the Dynasty game. Redraft is who's going to score more points this year. Dynasty is who's going to be more valuable this time next year. That's another way of phrasing the two differences. You can just play the way you've always played, but just be gentle with it. You love CMC this year. I know you do. We all do. But maybe be okay taking Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase over him because he's ranked over them in Dynasty. You still want CMC, but you can get him in the third round or the second round, the end of the first, actually, instead of early in the first round. That's fair. Just check out a decent source of ADP, Dynasty League Football. That's my home base. Or go to fantasypros.com. Get a free account. They actually have Dynasty ADP and Dynasty rankings as part of the free account. Just focus your game, how you play Redraft, but actually just gently allow that Dynasty ADP does that question better. So just because CMC looks undervalued to you doesn't mean you overdraft him in your draft, right? You see what I mean? Just be willing to be guided by Dynasty ADP a bit. And honestly, just knowing those two things, you'll be fine. You've got most of it. No Dynasty ADP or Dynasty rankings. And again, Fantasy Pros free account, good. Keep Trade Cut does all that stuff for free as well. Not necessarily the best, but they'll be perfectly fine. And then your knowledge of who scores points. You already know most of that because you play Redraft, so you're fine. And just allow Dynasty valuations of players to guide you to where you want. You can build a purely Redraft team in a Dynasty draft if you do it by ADP, like you trade into the right spot with a future first or whatever to get CMC a little higher than ADP, but where you're comfortable taking him higher than DLF. And then you trade to where Nick Chubb is. And then you trade to where AJ Brown is because he's a little undervalued because of age. You can completely do that, but you just have to respect the ADP just a little bit to start with until you get a good sense of where it's going right and wrong for yourself. And so that you're not completely bleeding that value. Like if you want CMC, trade back to get him where he should go, and trade back by adding future draft capital, right? Or some pretty good picks early on in that draft. But yeah, as long as you're doing those two things, follow Dynasty ADP with a redraft mentality, you'll be fine. You know the points well enough. You just have to know that you're still developing a feeling the same way you have one for points, because that's how I play value. And for who is going to be more valued this time next year. Or you can start asking yourself that question as you draft. I'm drafting this guy right now, but am I missing someone who might be more valuable this time next year? Positional trends help out with this. Wide receivers tend to have longer term value arcs and be higher valued for a longer period of time. Tight end and quarterback are relatively stable at the top. So, Mahomes, Allen, Kelsey, pretty safe. Whereas Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are pretty safe and also of higher value for a longer period of time. From this point on. So, yeah, where was I on that? Yeah, just do those two things. Sorry, that should just be 2 sentences. And I'm trying to succinct everything to not scare you out of Dynasty, because it's really very simple. There's no reason to adjust too strongly what you already know. Just following ADP is going to get you 90% of the way to there. One of the intros I've written for the podcast this week is literally an explanation of how you start at the top of the Dynasty mountain and you look at the mountain of information, we'll call it, below you. And you think, man, I have a long way to go. And the deeper you get, the closer you get to understanding part of Dynasty, the more you realize you are now as close as you were to understanding it as you were at the top. You just have to sift through an awful lot of information to realize why and which parts of what you assumed was true already at the start are actually true and why. Like, you don't actually improve greatly by doing all this extra Dynasty work. There's a little edge, and it's mostly by recognizing what parts of what work the way they do. And the rest is just noise. Positional trends, career arcs, the fact that players break out most often in their second year. When players break out for the first time, you've pretty much seen their ceiling and just treat them like that from then on. And also rookie evaluation. The Dynasty kicks crap out of everyone for rookie evaluation. And I'm including Devi in that, damn it. But yeah, I've heard way too many best ball bros and people that have won millions playing DFS, to be fair. But when it comes to rookies, the average Dynasty player knows more about who's a good player, because that crowd, the redraft crowd, tends to be overly invested in size metrics and athleticism, because it seems to make intuitive sense and they haven't dug down into it nearly far enough. And you find that most of that washes out once you've gone through enough draft classes, that the size and the athleticism mostly is just noise. And it's really about draft capital and how productive they were in college. And that's it. Sorry, I've gone way too far into this, Robert, but hopefully there are some very succinct thoughts in there. FantasyPros.com has, or DLF, obviously named, that's who I work for. Really good sources. Check out podcasts. Hit us up on Twitter. Ask questions if you're ever uncertain. Everyone's happy to talk here. And get a list. Get a list of ADP and just play how you would normally play, but respect that the ADP for now is right, and you'll learn where you do and don't like it from a Dynasty mentality as you play or get familiar with it a little bit more. Do mocks. Regular stuff. Genji, if I had Ritter in Dynasty, I'd be looking to move off him as soon. Yeah, same with Pickett and Love. Hey, welcome back. Are analysts correct to predict lower pass volumes for a team like the Packers? Right. It's hard to say whether they're right or wrong. I don't know. I've noticed, excluding true dual threat QBs, year one starters tend to throw as much. I haven't looked at it that way. Much more than their predecessors. That's interesting. I haven't looked at year one starters relative to their veterans that are leaving the team. You may well be onto something there. Looking at that situation specifically, I don't see a drastic reason they would attempt less passes unless you're expecting Jordan Love to be less successful at completing passes. Therefore, that reduces the number of overall attempts, if that makes sense. So they could be looking at it that way. That would be fair, but I don't know how much I would expect it to adjust down based on that. Because the Packers in 20 they weren't that high in passing, and they weren't that successful either. So I wouldn't see a lot of regression coming or a lot of reduction coming. James Tucker, Justin Ross, truther. Hello, me too. I'm just a consensus, I guess. I'm just anti-consensus, I guess. No's life is Tony can't get healthy. Do you prefer him or Rashee Rice for value perspective? I've kind of been at Tony since his rookie draft. He's all efficiency, no volume, and I chase volume. But he's really impressive on the field, so it's been tense a few times, I gotta say. Between Tony and Rashee Rice, I'd choose Rashee Rice. Between all three, I'd choose Justin Ross. No joke. I choose Justin Ross. But Rashee Rice has an inline draft capital, but I really think Justin Ross is just as good of a chance, and he's easy to get. Rashee Rice for me. Tony, also I'm trading away now. Yeah, trading away forever. I mean, I'd love to see that come to fruition, but I don't. Hasn't yet. Somehow he's still an asset people want to buy. The upside of watching him, and honestly, his numbers when he's playing are kind of phenomenal. But again, that's kind of the problem with phenomenal efficiency numbers. They don't sustain. You can hold Justin Ross, but I try to sell him too now that he has some value packaging. No, I'm going to hold. I don't think his value is near enough worth trading him yet, at least. I'm going to hold. Can Bijan and that talent make him? Yes, I think he's going to be great. Can Bijan make Ridder great? No. But it can help him be, I don't know, good. I mean, Jared Goff had Todd Gurley for a little while. If the team is doing well, that's going to help Ridder out. Because quarterback, while it creates a lot of the offense, like there's an interplay there, it also is also subject to the offense. So if the offense is struggling despite the quarterback, that hurts the quarterback's overall numbers, how he looks, and how the team feels about him, to be fair. So if Bijan's helping, that helps Ridder. Yeah. Can Bijan make Ridder great? No. He can't. I don't think if everyone's great on that team, it can't make a quarterback great. And I don't think Ridder's great, but it can definitely help him. Yeah. Love that. Thank you. No problem. I don't know what part you were talking about, but there you go. Do you love Ridder and Pickett's values right now and play much more than fringe starter production? No, but I want rid of it now because the minute they are fringe starter productions, I don't think people will even want them for that because they know they're temporary. There's no upside. Blah, blah, blah. It's Jared Goff, but we don't know he's still going to have a job, kind of a thing. And I think that actually could do worse than Jared Goff. I'd rather Deontay over Pickens. I would too, but he's projected as a wide receiver too. And if he could actually get volume, and he has wide receiver one upside in his range. I mean, I don't think he's going to do it, but he kind of has it in his range of outcomes. I don't think Deontay was top 12 once, I think, but it's Pickens at this point. I'd rather have Deontay. James Tucker, Pickens is just a hype train. Not a strong one. I don't think, again, to the point just made, I don't think they're being overvalued. I just think any excitement or any, I want that in this trade-ness to him in your league is going to disappear once they see it. But maybe not. I'm hoping I'm wrong. See, trades for me more on, the ADP indicates where people are on them. That's fine. But right now, preseason, like we're doing, James, in the back of our head, we know we could be wrong. I know I could be wrong on Pickett. I know I can. And in someone else's head, they know they can be right, that there is more upside there. So while his value is his value, he's a 21st ranked quarterback. That's just fringe starter potential. Someone in your league or more people in your league might be willing to give into that hope and the dream. Rightly, because it's there, to be fair. Whereas after they see it, I think that goes. I was like, oh, no, he is the fringe starter value. Okay. I think there are less people that hold that hope the minute it happens. That's all I'm saying. His value is fine. 2 wide receivers, 2s, and 1 wide receiver, 1 upside. Fair enough. Bye. If Ridder, Love, and Pickett end up being good, I'm okay missing it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. You prefer Quentin Johnson? Yes, I do prefer Quentin Johnson to Zay Flowers. It's another one where I'm happy to be wrong, but the process is a process kind of a thing. Zay Flowers looks good. He looks fine. Yeah, he looks pretty good, actually. I don't see the upside that a lot of people see in his numbers, but I mean, Deontay Johnson didn't have mega numbers. He had it's okay. And having... So, yeah, he could still be that. But Quentin Johnson has numbers which put his range of outcomes, for me, closer to more upside. I wouldn't be surprised to be wrong, because we're guessing it's something that's impossible to get right consistently. But I have pretty good confidence in my rookie process at this point. And so Quentin Johnson over Zay Flowers, but it's a tier, to be clear. Oh, you're talking to Genji. I get to move on. Hey, are they good bets? Yeah, they are good bets. Dynasty is so deep compared to redraft. I think Dynasty thinks it's so deep compared to redraft. I think one of the main advantages to take advantage of is realizing that the wealth of players we hope are going to be good turn out not to be good, which is why I roster just backup running backs, because most of the sleepers don't work out. Or anything that could be termed a sleeper or a value, or unless it's an old guy that's done it before and is getting devalued because people want the shiny things, mostly they don't work out. But yeah, it's a little deeper. Their valuations reflect that, I think. That's fair. Yeah, I think their value's fair. I think their ranks are fine, fair. I just think there's a little squeeze in there in Dynasty, you know? If someone wins 1 year with Kelsey in 1 year and you don't win in 5 years, they win. Yeah. But it's fun. As long as leagues keep going, it's fine. What is the secret to keeping a league going? I don't know. Honestly, don't know. Most of my leagues have been going for a while. I think the secret to any part of a league is having fun with each other playing fantasy football. And that seems simple, but if you get a DM going, if you can actually joke around with each other, even if some people are more toxic than others, because I know online leagues are not all best friends who, talk to each other all the time. But find a league where the level of toxicity reflects what you find enjoyable. Some people, none. Like, let's just be friends. That's fine. Some people, a little bit of rib poking is okay. Some people, a lot of toxicity is perfectly fine. I am here to fight. So find a league that fits that level for you, and then get involved. A league that is active, communicates in a fashion that everyone is very happy and feels good to be there. That means the league will last, as far as I can tell. Yeah, but when they don't hit, you're stuck with garbage in your team, and no one wants that. And that's kind of what I mean. Like, in season, when it doesn't have that upside of potential, you're like, oh, I just have this roster spot covered. That's roster clockers, We'll definitely check out more DLF resources. DLF is honestly, I know I keep saying it's for the company, but it's honestly getting better. It's got a lot of good content. I joined it originally just as a Dynasty player because I wanted their ADP. I like looking over their ranks. I like reading their articles, even though I write a few of them there. It's honestly a good, solid source relative to cost, and they're giving out. Follow me, follow Ryan McDowell on Twitter, follow the DLF football twit at on Twitter, because they're constantly saying we're gonna give. They just let people into the site for a year. Now, obviously, it's a con in the sense that you get in for the first year, you understand that you'll like it, and then you pay for the second year. So don't get me wrong, they do like making money, but they do quite often do competitions or free giveaways. And most people who want to try it out just for a single season, if you're following those ads, you're going to find an opportunity to at least have it for a year and see if you like it. And honestly, I do think if you get it for a year, you're going to find that you like it pretty well. It's a really solid. As far as Dynasty goes, I think it's the A side. Doesn't do anything the best, including my articles for sure. But it does. It's a Mike Clay of Dynasty. It's not going to. Now I feel like I'm being rude to Mike Clay. I didn't mean that. I meant that as a positive. It's like the best all-round single stop that you can have for Dynasty, honestly. That's why I like it. That's why I started liking it. That's why I ended up. That was the place I wanted to go and work when I got an opportunity. James Tucker. Keep trade cut. Should I hire Ron Rivera? Yeah. Don't hire anyone that you don't like. Bryce, CJ, and Richardson are good bets. Yeah. So looking at Love, Ritter, and Pickett in comparison just justifies the lower risk. Not really. Their range of outcomes is different. For example, Love, Ritter, and Pickett's outcome, like historically, the upside that you could expect is about halfway up the medium range of outcomes for CJ Richardson or Bryce Young. That's just based on draft capital. And at quarterback, those trends are really strong. And like to the point that you can look at top 5 picks versus top 20 picks in the first round. And we have enough of a sample of that we can be reasonably confident in saying the thing that I just said about their ranges of outcomes. But I think you two guys are talking to each other, so I should stop interrupting. If you could describe your dynasty philosophy in 3 words. No, I can't. I can do my description of my podcast, which is basically my dynasty process. No player evaluation, historical evaluation. That's as few words as I can do it. Instead of trying to develop an evaluation process which gives me an edge to know who is good and bad, instead I look historically at what type of player is better and worse. That's it. That's my dynasty process. I'm not interested in who does what better. I'm interested in that a wide receiver entering year 2, having got a 17% target share and a 10 points per game, has a higher upside than a third-year player who had a 17% target share and 10 points per game. Like, that's what interests me. It's a historical comparison, not the player evaluation. I don't think I know Garrett Wilson is great. Oh, Amon St. Brown is just a stud or an alpha. I think I know what hits more often where. Oh, that's what I'm trying to find out. That wasn't 3 words. Big baller shit. I would think that was the best description of you. Yeah. And Dynasty is the best. Just do it. You'll be happy. Hopefully. There's a good community out here. Even if you're not winning, honestly, there's enough really good people here that you can have fun talking, commiserating, or just plain arguing about what you think's going to happen or did happen. Robert, thank you again for the depth. Not a problem, man. I don't think you threw too much out at me. I don't mean to. I probably don't know enough to drown you in the facts that I know. I just meant, you're probably looking for a simple answer, and I didn't mean to sound so convoluted. Really appreciate going into the different facets of things. I will definitely consume more DLF podcasts. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Those are all free for everyone, not just my podcast, DLF Podcast. There's a family. Check out the Superflex Super Show with John Hogue, or the DLF Main Family Podcast, which is actually probably a really great place to start because you hear Brian McDowell, like the OGs of Dynasty, walking through Dynasty. So yeah, those are actually probably a really good place to start. I should have said that off the start. The podcasts, obviously, that aren't mine. Genji, yeah, I have more to play, but yeah, you're still arguing about the QBs. I have no more to add. I said my thoughts on them, so I'm going to skip it. Second year QBs with 10th round starter 80. Yeah, okay. I keep clicking on it. And a start 8 Superflex going to start 9 Superflex next year. Interesting. What would you give up for Ridder? Not much. If I am interested in the range of outcomes of Ridder, I am more interested in the range of outcomes of Dak Prescott. I'd rather add to get there. Or who are the old guys this year? Matthew Stafford. I'd rather trade for the old guys with that known higher upside, even if it's just a 1 year. It's a Ben Roethlisberger rule. You just keep, or Tom Brady rule is probably a better way of saying. You just keep throwing out that second for Tom Brady because everyone knows he's going to retire next year. So Matt Stafford, I think Jared Goff fits in that category. Ryan Tannehill, I'm more interested in those players. So there's almost no value. Like, I'd rather trade it away. I'd rather target other players if I'm interested in that kind of thing. Just drafted Bajon in my rookie draft and got offered Algier for Puka Nacua and a 24th. Do I take it? So here's the rule. In redraft especially, it's better to roster other people's handcuffs. In Dynasty, it's better to roster other people's handcuffs. There's more upside. The game theory plays out relatively similar way. However, in Dynasty, a lot comes down to how you feel about your team and also just security of knowing your league and how likely it is you get certain things. John Hogue, for example, knows that rule and still prefers to roster his own handcuff. And it's perfectly fine. The edge of rostering someone else's handcuff is real, but it's also small. It's not like really strong. It's not like every backup running back becomes a startable asset. Yes, you decrease in points per game, but in a dynasty squad, you could build well enough, or you can predictably plan to build well enough that the running back the lower production replacement is actually worth it in dynasty. You should roster other people's handcuffs, but it's fine to trade for your own if it makes you more comfortable or you think your squad is really strong elsewhere. Having said that, Puka Nacua in the 4th is probably the dynasty answer, 9 times out of 10. I'm not particularly interested in Puka Nacua or a 4th, so I'd probably rather have Algier, and I think that trade's fine. There you go. That's all my answers, all 3 of them. Ideally, I want, yeah. Don't let anyone convince you. Like, if you like them, keep them. But again, listen to arguments. Genji's making a good one. I've attempted to make a good one. You can adjust if you feel like it. But I can't, man. I can't talk anymore. Pick it. I'm going to get out of here, guys. It's later than usual. Zach left. I was meant to get to leave early. And instead, I'm leaving later than usual. You should stop being so much fun to talk to. I don't know what to tell you. Really appreciate everyone for showing up tonight. Thanks very much. And I will see you next Wednesday on the Dynasty Grind. That's after the expo, so we might get at least one of Zach or Russ back by this time next week. So that will be cool.